That's going, and then we can get started. We're going to speak on some legal terms today, which is what the Bible is, anyways, right? It's law and case study. That's what we're going to do. We're going to put some stuff on trial. All these things we've been told, let us put them on trial. Let's give us some exhibits today to show what's going on, see if this stuff matches up with what we've been told, and see what we can do to progress as a society and as a community, as a kingdom, as lawful citizens. We're going to go ahead and get into this today. Thank you for being on with us on all the platforms. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it's in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect this message. Amen. Welcome to everybody, the Lottie Dottie, everybody. We're thankful and grateful once again to the Most High. We're thankful and grateful to him for my wife, the Honorable Mind, who lives a life that's able to be honored. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And you can check her out on multiple platforms and even support her business by looking for her at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. You find her on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. The email address is going to be Bloom and Flourish, add the number 1. Bloom, the letter N, Flourish, number 1. All one word, Bloom and Flourish 1 at gmail.com. Thank you to everybody for being on. I'm trying to get the podcast going. There we go. All right, looks like we got it going now. Amen. So welcome to everybody on YouTube, the podcast, TikTok. We got Butterfly Effect on, Mayhew 50, Miss Mac, Minister Tamara, Minister Sonia, and 8 and we have many others coming on as they come on. Welcome, grateful to everybody. Thanks for being on, whether you're watching this live or watching this later on. How you doing, Minister Select Omar? To everybody who's on, we appreciate you. My wife walking around in a beautiful green dress. So we're thankful to everybody for being on today. Hello, Minister Nice. How you doing, Bounty? Hello. Thanks for the likes, for the shares, for the love. We appreciate it. Thank you, Minister Tamara. See you. And today we want to make it a point to speak on putting it on trial, right? To Marsha, Malcolm, Betty, Isabel, and Solomon. Daddy loves you very much. Hello, Clara. How you doing? If it's your first time with us, if it's one time a many, to the ministerial staff, the moderators, those helping out in admin, so many different people helping us. We appreciate you. All right, Sister Betty, be safe on your travels. Amen. And praying for you and what we've been talking about recently. To everybody, thank you. Shalom to you. Peace be upon everybody. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Shalom, mashalom che, anai Kofi. Jambo, Bimini Kofi, Nina Faraku, Katana Noewe, Ni Hao, etc. How's everybody doing? Brian coming on out the gate. What is my commentary on George Floyd? Said Jesus only. Well, Yahshua is the way, the truth, and the life. So, if you want to call him Jesus, you do that. It's not our standard. However, bless you, and hopefully you're keeping up the standard that you say you do. And basically, we're putting stuff on trial today. So really, it's going to be a little more open, even though I try to be very open to the comment section. And of course, if everybody can just treat each other with respect as human beings, I think we'll do all right. We do have moderators to help us to ensure that happens on all the platforms. And so thank you. And if you're watching to this later on or listening to this later on one of the platforms that this is being recorded on, we ask that you guys continue to treat each other with respect there. Hello, Don. Hello, Rhonda. How you doing? I see you, Sister Cherise, Sister Deja. And you said, what is my commentary on, which is an interesting word to use. Thanks for being part of Community Passion Flower. You said, what is my commentary on George Floyd and BLM? Well, let's put it on trial. let's just go ahead and jump in. I have so many different places we can go. I'm prepared to go many different ways today. And moderators, be prepared, because this can go many different ways, which means that we know that people will do a lot of different things with this. Hopefully, people are willing to have actual conversation and to actually be apologetically sound and use hermeneutics and homiletics in a proper manner. We'll see if that happens. How you doing? Thanks for sharing space. Appreciate it. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? I see you on there. Still got to call you up. I'll see if I can reach out to you today, because I need to do it this week as we get closer. Further, by the way, remember those of you who are in the Central North region, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, the Dakotas, whatever, Ohio, in that area, we're going to try and meet up probably in the Chicago area Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the end of this month. So all of you who want to come out, feel free. We have a podcast that's actually running right now live. And then we also have YouTube. So the podcast, if you're on the podcast, and hello, Sister Deborah, how you doing? If you're on the podcast, if you're on YouTube, all you have to do is actually look up, what's in the description box with the video, and you can find out how to get in contact with us or find out other things that we do. If you're on TikTok, podcast information is actually in our bio. But if you go and look at our website where it says website, click on that. That's our link tree. All this stuff will open up to you. And as soon as that opens up to you, you can decide where you want to ask a question or listen to what we believe. We have plenty of playlists. We got a whole bunch of stuff, and we're starting kind of sort of from scratch. We've been on for several years. We got shut down because we started giving people ways to get out of having to take, we started talking about COVID and stuff like that, and started talking about the vaccine, and people have a right to choose whatever. And we gave some real stuff. And the World Health Organization contacted YouTube and told YouTube that we had to be shut down. That's what YouTube legit told me. So we do have a lot of stuff on there. We try to put out at least a video a day average. So and then those who are Patreon, etc. Right. Also too, we'll try to have some information finally about our shirts. I'm looking at trying to get it done this weekend, but definitely by Monday. So those that are interested in bringing back some of the stuff we were doing with our shirts and things, as far as fundraisers for things we do and around the world, specifically, a lot of stuff is just going into our land project, trying to make sure that we own land by the end of this year. And then also we're looking at, and then possibly looking at trying to get some of our music finally out there. If you want to look at that, some of the stuff you guys have listened to in the past, if you've been with us before, and posting that in different places, to where if you'd like to be able to support and give donations for that, we appreciate that as well. How you doing, Sister Barbara? And if Sister Beverly's on, I don't know if she's on yet. If she is, I missed her. However, congratulations to you. I saw you getting your award, your certificate, and so thankful and grateful for you being an example of hope and a beacon of hope to everyone, as you and your mother continue to be. So somebody said George Floyd immediately. I don't know if that person is still on or not, but somebody asked about George Floyd. What's the commentary? Well, let's put it on trial, because if we're going to talk about George Floyd and we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, which was the question, and very interesting, because that was the question. It wasn't about society. It wasn't about the United States corporation. It wasn't about the United States of America. It wasn't about racism. It wasn't about is race a social construct. It wasn't about a system of oppression. It wasn't about are white people actually a real people? Not as far as if you're white, do you exist, but who taught you what white was? Is white an actual color? Things of that nature. It wasn't about that. And so we have to put it on trial. If we're going to say, let's put it on trial, and all these things we're going to talk about today, we're going to put them on trial. We want to look at it from a legal place, right? We're talking about kingdom law, marital law, universal law, natural law, law of first mention, law of attraction, law of equity, remedial law, procedural law, substantive law, public law, private law. The Bible itself is law and case study. So when I receive a question, I have to look at it through law, right? Now, rights have to be coming to the equation, because rights are what we have the right to do. And you have the right to do almost whatever you want. However, there's laws in place that say that, okay, if your rights infringe upon somebody else's right as a sovereign being, we have to be able to protect them. Or if that person doesn't want to be sovereign and wants to be under the public or under the government, then they still have to have their right protected as a human being. Oh, it's our pleasure. Thank you. So if we're going to talk about the question that came up as far as George Floyd, if that's going to be the first exhibit, if that's going to be the first thing we're going to put on trial, so to speak. And so let's look at the exhibit. Number one, why do we think that George Floyd even happens? Do we even want to talk about Kenosha? I used to live not that far from Kenosha. Been to Kenosha quite a few times in my life. Used to live in Zion, Illinois, which is literally right on the border of Wisconsin. In Illinois, I was on the Illinois side. If you drove up, I forget what the name of the road is right now. I guess you could, there was something green something. And on the other side, closer to me, there was another road that were both parallel to each other. You could ride straight up. You had to go through a place called Pleasant Prairie, which is right next to Kenosha. Now, people don't want to have a conversation about this once again. However, we got to be holistic. If we're going to put this on trial, we got to put and support stuff, and we got to make sure that we comprehend what the prosecution is going to say, what the defense is going to say, etc. So, if we're going to look at this holistically with George Floyd, if we're going to put that on trial first, since that's the first thing mentioned. First things first, where's Kenosha once again? See, everybody wants to argue about George Floyd, whether you're ALM, BLM. It's interesting. We go to argument over his lifestyle. Did his lifestyle matter? All these different things. And we got to be honest about it. Now, hold on. I just realized I didn't turn on the light. I don't know how much it's going to help us or not, but let me try and turn on this light real quick. Hold on. See if that helps. I feel like I can't see y'all. I don't know if it's going to help at all, but prayerfully it helps a little bit. No, not really. I must have something going on with the camera too. But yeah, I probably got some kind of dirt spot on the camera. Let's see if I can clean this up a tiny bit. I don't know if it'll help or not. But on TikTok, I feel like it's really blurry where my face is. Okay, that's better. There we go. That's better. So we're going to talk about George Floyd and everything that happened. It happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Could be the backlight. Yeah, it's a little better now that I cleared up the stuff and I got the front light going. Right. So, hey, you know, Sister Tracy, if we're going to talk about this, then let's talk about Kenosha. Let's talk about Wisconsin. Let's talk about Illinois. This is not just a random occurrence, and that's part of the problem. If I'm going to be the acting lawyer, per se, and we'll let you all be the judge, even though the Most High is ultimately our judge, but in this context, in this setup, you can be the judge. I'm going to present some things to you that maybe we don't think about as far as George Floyd and what's his name, Derek Chauvin or something like that, and all these different things, and Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and where this stuff came from. First and foremost, just because Wisconsin is up north doesn't mean that there's not racism. And racism is not a person. So before somebody gets all upset and frustrated and flustered and how dare you talk about this and see, I knew that you're a reverse racism, blah, blah. No. Racism is not a person. And one of the reasons why people could not even empathize with George Floyd is because you're part of a system that says that you should not empathize. Out of Norfolk, okay. I used to live in Norfolk, Virginia. Used to be stationed on the naval station. I don't know what they call it now. It used to be called Naval Station Norfolk, and used to live in Norfolk, right outside of Gate 5. And then I actually was before that in Little Creek, Virginia, on the base there, and then I lived in Virginia Beach. So yeah, that's what's up. You said you find the North to be more racist than the South. It's just more covert. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of stuff that goes up there. You know, racism is a system, and we have this weird thing of just being like, if somebody mentions racism, we're saying that you as a person are bad. No, racism is a system. ISM on a word makes it a system. And how you doing, Nana? Right? Racism is a system. ISM makes it a system. You said you're pretty sure his life mattered if you asked George Floyd, but you can't ask him because he's dead. I mean, yeah. But we're just going to outline some things. How you doing, Cash? We're just going to put some things out there that should be pretty simple for us to look at. And let's look at it as human beings. Let's not look at it as one person's better than the other. Let's get away from Republican, Democrat. Let's get away from ALM versus BLM for a second. Kenosha, Wisconsin is an extremely, there's some extremely bad things going on as far as racism. You want to know why I know that is? Having lived there, you know, want to know why that is? When I used to be in the church scene and all that, and I was over there, I was a minister, I was a preacher. I used to go to different places to help people out. Servants of Christ was still getting its legs underneath it. And I went through there and worked in there, doing deliveries or doing sales or a lot of stuff, right? If you go from where I said I live, Zion, Illinois, to Kenosha, Wisconsin, from where I live, you had to go up this place. You had to go through the city called Pleasant Prairie. Pleasant Prairie, when I lived there, so this is 2006 to 2008, something like that, maybe 2007, 2008. When you go through Pleasant Prairie, when you go through there are crosses in lawns. But maybe you didn't catch what I said. If you didn't, I'll let you do some research on crosses and lawns, right? But there are crosses on front lawns. Yeah, Minister Tamara says she's known to Wisconsin be racist since 1970s. Now, I need you to comprehend. I'm not talking about even in Illinois yet. I'm going to bring the Illinois piece to it, too, just as somebody who lived there for a little bit and has a little bit of recognition of things that have happened historically. Before we even bring up Southside Chicago and stuff, which contributes to this mindset and stuff, too, which was created not by us, but by other people who put us in a certain box. Just to go from Illinois to Kenosha, I have to go through places where they burn crosses on lawns. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I've seen. Matter of fact, one of the biggest things that the church I went to called Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Waukegan, Illinois, which was right next to Zion, Illinois, you had to, and that's right next, if you've been in the military, or if you've been in the Navy, they have a station right next to that in Great Lakes. Great Lakes, Illinois is right next to Waukegan, Illinois. Waukegan, Illinois, right next to Zion, Illinois. Zion, Illinois, right next to Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, that I'm talking about where the crosses are, goes right into Kenosha, Wisconsin. Kenosha, Wisconsin, right on its way to not Madison, but what's the capital of Wisconsin? It's, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it, but the capital of Wisconsin. All these things right in a row. So the governor who allowed Derek Chauvin, by the way, to kill off a bunch of people, right? She did. That's how he was allowed. That's why she was supposed to be your vice president. Those of you who are still part of the United States Corporation, thank you, Milwaukee. Thank you. So she allowed Chauvin to keep getting away with stuff as a DA before she got moved over to being the governor, living in Milwaukee. She lived in Milwaukee, right? But this, while she was the DA, Chauvin kept coming in front of her where people were saying he's killing all people, not just only Black and Spanish people, even though it was mostly them, but even at a couple of instances where he was knocking off white people. And she just kept letting them get off over and over again. She's in the seat of Milwaukee. Kenosha is what happened with George Floyd. Pleasant Prairie is where they put crosses on the road, right? Zion, Illinois is a place that where we know, if you're from there, it's native land, right? But it's totally, you know, you have no rights as a native person, as a person of color. Then keep on going down to where now we get into the Great Lakes, and then eventually make our way over to Chicago. South Great Lakes, a place to where it's one of the most destitute places. If you're not in the military, you really don't want to be in Great Lakes. You said Madison's the capital? Okay, cool. All right. So Madison, right? Milwaukee's a famous place up there, right? But Madison, right? So you go through all these different places and you look at this going on and on and on. This is a whole area where there's been a bunch of racism. Like this is a whole area where there's been a system of oppression for a particular people. And even the people that are poorer than the people oppressed are still in on killing people and hanging them from trees and stuff. I'm not telling you what I didn't experience and live through. I'm telling you, when you went through Pleasant Prairie, you never stopped. That one thing I was saying, now going back to when I was in the churches, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped over that. When I was going there, it was a big deal because we actually invited one of the congregations from Pleasant Prairie to come and preach at our church. And then we went and preached at their church. And it was a huge deal in the area because we weren't supposed to mix. And the girlfriend was in Minnesota. Okay. So I'm telling you, that in and of itself already sets a background. See, we talk about racism. People go, "Oh, you're calling me a racist," which, by the way, racist by definition really should mean, by the social construct, that you're proficient in your race. So being a proficient Black person would mean that I would be great treating all human beings. Being proficient in a white person means that you should be proficient in treating all human beings that way. But because race is competition, And race has become a social construct in which people that are on top are supposed to be on the bottom. Well, a racist is somebody who is supposed to be proficient at putting their people up top and having everybody else on the bottom. So if we're going to use that term, people go, "Oh, you're calling me a racist." You said the horror stories from those training in Great Lakes. Sad. Amen. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happened. We heard a lot of different stories, a lot of different things as far as what would happen in boot camp. And that stuff just kept on, they kept it moving like nothing happened. Right. And nowadays it's the only boot camp. You know, there used to be boot camp in Florida and in California, which would make sense having one on the water. Now it's on the Great Lakes, I guess technically, but you don't even really go in the water when they have a pool and they have a fake ship, and that's it. So they don't even really train you out there. Nevertheless, right? You got to comprehend. You said George Floyd was in Minnesota. Okay, I'm sorry. So Rittenhouse was in Kenosha. Okay, so I didn't say who was where yet, but all right, cool. So once again, set up like I'm saying, Kenosha, right next to Pleasant Prairie. That's where he left from, right? And so he left from there, right, to where this DA had let this stuff go on and on and on. She was supposed to be the one that was going to be your vice president. And then all of a sudden, she was not there. Now, Minnesota is right next to it anyways, if we're talking about states. So we're still dealing in the same area. But what I'm trying to tell you is that look at what people say about black people in Chicago, right? Look at what they say about black people in Chi-Town, right? Look at how they say, oh, you guys don't care about black or on violence because you don't care about black on black violence, when there's more white people that are killing white people in a whole bunch of areas in that same area, let alone the country, than it is black people killing black people in Chicago. You just don't hear about it because it's not sexy. It's not appealing. It's not something you put on the news. As somebody that goes through different communities, I can tell you, I see it. I don't just help out black people only, even though that's my focus, I'll admit, because that's the community that I'm, serving. But we're not, right? So hear what I'm saying. This is what Kyle Rittenhouse comes out of, even if that's what we're doing. So now then he crosses and leaves. It goes to another state, right? And when he goes to another state, then he does what he does with that mentality, with that mindset. Now here also, because I can't really just focus on George Floyd. We're going to talk about George Floyd. It's not just the hood that George Floyd is in, but remember, George Floyd is somebody that is at one point in his life making a whole bunch of money playing a sport. Has a drug problem, has to get himself together. And now you're dealing with Chauvin. And Chauvin, by the way, remember, he's going back and forth from Florida. Florida, one of the most racist places on the planet, too, as far as racism. Right? Remember, like one of the issues going on with Chauvin is that not only was he in trouble with that, but when you get in the system, they start looking for you in other places in the country because they want to, your money at that point. So they want to get as much money out of you. So Chauvin, they were not only trying to get him now what happened with George Floyd, they're trying to get him on stuff that happened in Florida. Remember, he was in trouble for tax fraud and for not only tax fraud, tax evasion, but also for fraud in general, lying about who he was. And in Texas. Right? And Florida's the second home to those that are in the north. Yeah, in certain places. But, I've been to Orlando. I'm not comfortable in Orlando. Right? In Miami, I haven't been to Miami. However, in Miami, I know enough, listening to people, talking to people who are from there and having a lot of people when we first started who were in Miami, like Garuda Legends. I don't know if he's on or not today or if he'll listen to this later, but I'm familiar with them telling me how they're still dealing with stuff and how it's colorism more so than white versus black, but it's still racism. Right? The governor of Florida is always going to be red. Those of you who are into your gang or affiliation. You said North Carolina, South Carolina, right behind. I mean, yeah, there you can look everywhere. New York, everybody only talks about the 5 boroughs. Don't forget about upstate New York. There's a sister that's very dear to us that hasn't been on the lives and stuff for a while, but she's very dear to us, and she's somebody who lives in Florida now, white lady with a great husband, great children and stuff, and sent many gifts and different things to help us out, and even sent some stuff as far as things we can use to teach children and things like that. And she'll tell you she was raised in New York, upstate New York, and she was a farmer, and her father had her out there, and her father had her Her father was saying racist stuff and everybody just let it fly. And she used to be friends with some of the black people that used to work for them who were sharecroppers, so modern sharecroppers. And she said she had to finally tell her father, like, to his face, like, what are you doing? Why are you calling them that? That's wrong. Why is this? Why is that? Why are you saying the N-word? Why are you saying that they're incapable? Why are you saying they're not intelligent? Why are you saying they deserve to be in a bad position? And they weren't rich or anything themselves. They were borderline just making it. She's like, what makes us better than them? She said she remembered once we had some one-on-one sessions and she came to some of our classes for Black History. She actually was like, oh, you know what? I remember being a child and riding by these things that almost look like, bigger versions of outhouses. And families would live in there, and she would say, what are those houses? And they'd be like, oh, that's where the help lives. That's not a long time ago. And this is the same situation you're walking into. Now, George Floyd, once again, he's somebody who's Black. And by the way, he might have been on drugs. I don't know if he was high. They say he was high when they got there, but they lied about the autopsy, so we don't really know what happened. Nevertheless, though, they say George Floyd was allowed to be shot. Why was he allowed to be shot? Because he's somebody who was a thief. We know he didn't rob anybody, he didn't steal. He went in there. He gave him a 20. They marked the bill. The bill actually was fine, right? But the person didn't know how to look to see past certain procedures or whatever. Didn't even follow procedure. He was supposed to, even if it's just a 20, he's supposed to call the FBI. He's not even supposed to call the police. So everybody already has this mentality that he deserved to die. Southside Chicago, right in the same area of the country. Don't think that just because it's a couple states over or a state over or something like that, right? Like Wisconsin, where Kyle Rittenhouse is coming from and all that stuff, right? Kyle Rittenhouse is responding to the whole George Floyd situation. It's connected. It's interconnected. We're not just talking about George Floyd. See, once again, we talk about racism and people try to put it to a person. Racism is a system based off of a social construct that there are actual races. Right. And he gave him a 20. And it wasn't fake. What I'm saying, though, is that if you've ever worked in that type of arena, right, when it comes to money, you're supposed to talk to the FBI before you talk to the police. They call the police. Now, here's the deal. The police that show up is Chauvin, his brother-in-law, and I forget what the other two people are as far as relation to Chauvin or whatever. Let us not forget that Chauvin and George Floyd worked together. Now that we put all that together and people are just going to say he's automatically a bad person, why would we not present the fact that we forget that they work together? I was saying that before they started putting it on the news. I was telling people, like, if you know what's going on, you know that George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, they work together. Derek Chauvin didn't like George Floyd. George Floyd didn't like Derek Chauvin. Still isn't something that we talk about. You said racists love to visit Chicago. Yeah, and by the way, Chicago was founded by a Black person. But all we hear about is how Black people are a problem. And we don't talk about how white people came, dismissed the Black people, put them in a little box, and still keep them in places today. Just because Cabrini Green and places like that are gone doesn't mean that we still don't have the history of that, and doesn't mean that we still don't have projects like that today. Yeah, he had a grudge against them. Said exactly, and I'll never believe the cop didn't know who he worked with. Yeah, not only that, but we know that people said that they knew. The person who owned the bar that they both, or the club that they both worked at, she said that she had problems with Chauvin and how he was trying to get to George Floyd all the time. And she had to keep putting him in different places. You hear what I'm saying? Like we know this to be a fact. So you could say is so Chauvin, even though we know he had been killing a bunch of Black people and stuff like that and getting away with it. However, Chauvin, you could even say, fine, if you want to go there, he didn't do it because he was racist. He hated George Floyd. Well, he did it for some reason, and he felt he could get away with it for some reason. Now, the getting away with the piece that he thought he could, and the people that came up to his defense, and the people like Kyle Rittenhouse who were coming from places like that are right next to Pleasant Prairie, where we know that they're bearing crosses in the lawn. Right? I'm telling you, somebody who lived right next to it and went through it quite a bit and never wanted to stop inside of it because it was a death sentence to myself and my children. Right? Like, you never stopped in Pleasant Prairie. You better make sure you got gas. Now, it's a small town, right? So it's not that hard to get through it. But look, you were trying to get straight through. You say he had intent. Being racist isn't illegal. That's a very good point my wife brings up. Being racist is not illegal, right? But think about what we're talking about. Racism, a system. right? A system. I'd have to look into the military training camps. I mean, they have a lot of training camps that are KKK oriented, so there's not a thing that would be news to me per se. But I'd have to study more what you're talking about. Nevertheless, like we're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. So now think about how many in society where this became BLM versus ALM. We know that that $20 was real. We know that the person, by the way, the person feels awful about this. And the person wasn't even white. The person feels awful about this, who actually, called the police because they led to somebody being killed. What kind of system has it to where people are afraid? There's, tens of people, but there's 4 police officers. They got guns and they think they have the right to be able to do what they did. His brother-in-law, who's Asian, right? His brother-in-law, that's fine with him putting his knee on his neck for however long it was, 9 minutes and some seconds, whatever it is, it keeps going up, down, whatever, but way too long. By the way, I've done police work. If I arrest somebody and I put your hands behind your back and I put your chest to the ground, guess what? I have to recognize that you will not be able to breathe that long. I cannot keep you on your chest. I cannot keep you on your chest. Remember, what's the sister's name? They got killed in the same place. Like 2 or 3 other black people have been found hanging, and 2 of them like in that same cell that she was in. She was before George Floyd. Is it Sandra something? No, what's her name? I can't remember our sister's name right now. There's so many of them, it'd be hard to keep up with the names. Sandra, yeah. Sandra Bland. Sandra Bland. Remember, if you've seen the video when she showed up to the police station, they had her tied, like you would have a pig tied with his hands behind his back and everything, or like a deer or something, or an animal tied, and you have an apple in their mouth. Basically, like he had basically brought her out the vehicle and put her down on the ground like that. That's one of the most dangerous things you could do. First of all, she's a human being. Secondly, though, if you're going to put a human being like that, they can't survive like that on their chest that long. So not only did he have his knee on his neck, he had his chest in the ground with his hands cuffed. And she was hogtied, yeah. So a system defends that. And when I say that system is wrong, people say, oh, you're a racist, you're a reverse racist, you hate white people. No, I'm saying that there's something wrong with the system that would have you argue my racism versus somebody's humanity. How, right? But if we put this system on trial, see, let's put it on trial, right? Do the same system. You said, what about the white police officer who shot the black man in the head justifies black officer shot white, right? I mean, shoot, if you weren't even that, way years before that, we already saw that. They'd have a lot of cussing and stuff, so people who aren't into cursing and all those things, fine. But I'm saying, go look up. I'm about to say "Bulls on Parade." That's not the name of the song. Why am I having an issue with I'm having an issue with names today. What's the name of the group? Bulls that did Bulls on Parade and Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine. Go check out them, right? When the same song, he says you got to do what they told you. And he says you can tell lies, they justify, and you can kill the person, right? Because you chosen white. White is chosen to be able to be over the other people. That's the name of the game. People were telling us this a long time ago. Childish Gambino, even though he copied that song off of somebody else and got a lot more money than the other person, but nevertheless, Childish Gambino, this is America, right? But we've known this. I put out, we got a Patreon video that I was working on today. Blowing in the wind, right? I can't remember all the lyrics. What is that? How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she lays in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they form rebel band? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Second verse, how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years must some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times must a man turn his head and pretend he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. That's Bob Dylan. What's that, 50s, 60s? A white person by the social construct. This isn't anything new. We got to put this on trial. There's a system that's there, and the system needs to be put on trial. That's why they killed Malcolm X. Remember, Malcolm X was going to take America to court against it, to the United Nations, and there was a black man in Africa that he had met with that he was going to take all these European nations to court for the United Nations. They were both killed the same day. There's a system that needs to be put on trial. When they realized that they were going to put the system on trial, you keep trying to put a person on trial, but the system needs to be put on trial. That's why we have to come out of it. We're trying to argue people and not argue systems. Right? Matter of fact, if you want to look at that "Blown in the Wind" sound, Stevie Wonder has an incredible version of that song that he did as a tribute to Bob Dylan. Right? But you got to talk about the system. When you start trying to put the system on trial, now that's when people have a problem with you. That's why I can have people looking for me, and you would think that I'm nothing as far as numbers, but people looking for somebody like me and watching me and trying to get on phone calls, and police officers showing up when I'm doing lives and all types of stuff on a regular basis. You know why? Because we're talking about a system. Right, and the system's not going to try itself. That's a great point, Rhonda. The system's not here to try itself. Thank you for the love, Sister Deja. Appreciate it, right? Like, that's the system will not try itself. Thank you, Emmanuel. Ms. Max said they just do what they want to keep the system going. Yeah, most definitely. And people don't comprehend. You said, I see what we are running from. I agree. We should be running too. You said, when I tried to bring light to our city and police brutality, I've suffered, got no help. And by the way, even in that, the system is designed to go away from it because by definition, in court, there is no such thing as police brutality. So you got to see you're dealing with a wicked system. They'll put their knee on your neck, and then they'll tell you you have a victim mentality. They won't talk about that they have a victor mentality. Can we put that system? Let's put this system on trial. Let's put up another exhibit. What is a victor? I know we like the songs. I got the VICTOR. Wow, we love the song and stuff like that. But what is a victor really? What does the term victor even mean? Julius Caesar was a victor. Is he a great person? Augustus Caesar, he was a victor. Is he a great person? That's what people will say. A victor is a winner. Not quite, though. Look up victors in history. We don't even know where the term victor comes from, where it started. We don't know the Latin version of it. We don't know the Greco-Roman value of it. We don't know any of it. We just say, oh, I'm victorious. No, a victor, they write these words and they even put it in your canon. It's not originally in there, but they put it in your canon. And we just say, oh, okay, I believe in the Bible. It has a word in there that says victor. Therefore, I must be a victor. Even though it doesn't say victor, but victory, we like stuff like that, or victorious, or all this stuff. But you don't even really see that stuff in there. It's written in there, even in the versions that it's in. But a victor is somebody who conquers a people and then goes back. See, watch this. To be a victor, you have to conquer a people in the name of Rome. You have to then make sure that they bow down to everything. You kill a bunch of them all. You make sure that they pledge allegiance to you. You make sure that they give you a tribute, or what you might call a tithe, right? And then they go back to the other kings and queens, the Senate, the people that control the capital. That's who your kings or queens are in Rome. And you go back to them and you ask permission. Hey, is it all right if I have a parade, right? Because I'm a victor. And they parade around a lie. They act like every battle they were the smartest. They act like every They act like every battle they won. They act like every thing that happened was in their favor. They say that these people are always backwards and are barbarians. By the way, a barbarian is a way of just dismissing somebody, because the word barbarian literally is like saying somebody can't speak your language. Like people say now, man, I'm tired of all these people. I go to McDonald's and somebody can't speak without an accent, or people aren't able to speak English as well as me, blah blah, whatever. That's a Roman thing. A barbarian was somebody who they were just saying when they spoke, they sounded like blah 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 blah. They sound like bar 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 bar. That's why you called them a barbarian. Not because they were stupid, but because they were like, your language don't even matter. So it's even less than being stupid. It's like, man, your language ain't even great enough for us to even consider learning or whatever. You just a barbarian, blah, 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 whatever you say, blah, 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 blah. And is that not what they do to you today? We start speaking about our character and our belief system and our habits and our people and how we are humans as well, and how we are original and how we have an origin and what you should respect us in. And we talk about we want our language, and we say that we're accustomed to certain things because we're going to bring back our customs and traditions. And they say, man, whatever, you should just be in America, blah, 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 blah. That's the victor. Sorry, my wife said, thank you for this context of why we are where we are and being willing to speak truth. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being by my side, babe. Amen. We speak this thing together. Usually they tell wild stories of oppressing others and then go back to the same behavior. Yeah. It's rude. It's a way of being able to say you don't matter. So that's what they do. That's all ALM is. ALM is, man, we're victors. You're a victim. And in a certain case, it's true. Now, BLM, as far as an organization, is trash. We're starting to see a lot of stuff come out to where they took your money, they did all types of other things. They really didn't they didn't put one penny into the community. They didn't visit you. They didn't do this. They basically, like, there's people who you gave money to and they living as millionaires now. Or a lot of people gave money to put certain places. They gave it straight to the to Congress, to the Democratic Party. And I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but they use your color, blackface, to be able to get another agenda. And the agenda is not even really government oriented, even though the government works for the state, but it's more so LGBTQ plus oriented. And I'm not here to say that because if you're LGBTQ plus, you don't deserve respect. You're not a human being. I'm trying to tell you, though, that look up in your school systems, wherever you are in the United States of America, when it comes to the BLM week that they say that you have to have in your schools, those schools that participate in that BLM week, Black Lives Matter week, and they have a pyramid. They call it a BLM pyramid, and they'll have 13 different rules and things like that. They're on that pyramid, and they teach them for different age ranges and all that. And all they do is they only have 4 different things on that list that actually mention Black people. They only have 4. And when you look at those 4, for example, it'll say Black woman. And you know what it'll say? It'll say, yeah, there's Black women, but also there are many different types of women. And then they talk about whatever, blah, 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 right? Yeah, there's Black women, but whatever. We need to talk about these trans women and that all women are women, but they use your face. They use your color. They say Black Lives Matter, but it's code, right? You look at it says Black family. It'll say that Black families are important, but there are many types of families. And they start talking about that. In other words, yeah, Black people, but blah, 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 blah. Here's where it's really at. And the same way they use blackface. And they got you to start it is the way that now they're taking it and now they're saying, hey, Black people, why don't you consider our oppression? Our oppression is just as valid as your oppression. We go through the same oppression. Then they start comparing. Our oppression is worse. By the way, that's how blackface works. A lot of people don't recognize, putting the system on trial. A lot of people don't recognize that the first blackface were not worn by white people. It was worn by Black people. Black people who are already going through enough to be Black, if they wanted to go to certain neighborhoods or whatever and put on shows and have it to where white people might show up, then Black people had to make themselves even worse in the eyes of white people so that it was acceptable for white people to come. And they had to act really dumb and stupid, like Stephen Fetchitwood later on with people like Shirley Temple and others, right? Black people had to make themselves look really stupid, like Mammy, like the Black Mammy character did, and Gone with the Wind. So Black people put on blackface first. And then white people, instead of paying Black people, said, we'll just go ahead and put it on because white people like to laugh at Black people. So we'll just take on white, we'll say that we're Black by just putting on blackface, and we'll act really stupid and stuff like that. Then, right, and it's become a tradition to laugh at blackface, but blackface didn't start on white people. It started on Black people. So Black Lives Matter, it didn't start on LGBTQ plus. It started on Black people, where Black people have been saying for the longest time, our lives matter. Then all of a sudden somebody comes out and gives money to somebody else. And now it's become a thing where all women should be treated like women. And really they'd be saying like Black women. because they try to compare the oppression. It's the same thing. We got to put the system on trial. We're trying to put the person on trial. We won't put the system on trial. I'm sorry, 8%. Anyone knows legal help for me, please inbox me. Already had surgery, scared for treatment. Well, if you get in contact with us, we can probably have somebody that can help. I'm sorry. You might have asked before. I feel like you asked that before. Yeah, because you couldn't be black enough, right? Usually the BLM reparations would be distributed in a formal apology. I mean, I guess, but once again, even with it being distributed, we got to figure. Well, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I think, I'm not saying we shouldn't. How you doing, Sister Lisa? How you doing, Sister Beverly? I'm not saying that it shouldn't, but I'm saying don't hang your hat on it. We have to come to a place to where there's a system. See, put the system on trial, and if the system is found lacking, then you got to find a way to make sure that you come together somewhere else. And your standard has to become different, and you have to begin to do things to where you can do things within yourself. And people act like, oh, well, we can't feed our people if we don't have trade and stuff. Yeah, you can. You need land, and you need to grow food, and you need to make sure that you have things within yourself. There's certain things you don't need from others. Segregation is when black people in this country had the most they've ever had. You have to be willing to set up a system, though. And so we got to put the system on trial to even show people, is it necessary to come out of this system? You said you found old ads that shock you. Yeah. Go ahead, send them to me. I mean, even simple things, and this is not a shocking ad per se. Even though you can talk about gator babies, and you can talk about all types of stuff, and you can talk about ads as far as in China where a black person gets put in the washing machine, they come out, and now they're a very, 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 very light-skinned Chinese person and stuff like that. But even think about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. bus boycotts. Right behind him, if you look at it, you'll see a sign. I believe it's Pepsi. It's either Pepsi or Coke. I think it's Pepsi. And you'll see a Pepsi sign on the bus. Now, you got to recognize that this Pepsi sign was there whole time that the segregation thing was there, which meant that it was okay in the minds of people that the person that was advertising on the side of their bus, people had no problem with Pepsi saying, yeah, we're anti-equality, which is a myth anyways. You got to put the system on trial. Once again, remember that capitalism does not mean what a lot of people think it means. A lot of people think capitalism means that we all, basically that we all have a free, or we're free to be able to make money. Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state or the government or the country. Every state is a country. 50 United States or 50 United countries. That's what the United States Corporation is. So if you're looking at this and you see the people advertise, the only reason why this stuff went down is because there were enough people who didn't want to feel bad about seeing certain things. They were living with Colin Kaepernick being mistreated the whole time. But then when everybody got mad about it, and stuff, and people said, man, well, I don't want people to look at me like I'm somebody that was on the wrong side of history. So when those people said, okay, we'll speak up too, then the company said, oh, okay, we'll do just enough. Nike said, we'll give Kaepernick just a little bit of something, not even what he deserves in the NFL, but we'll give him a little bit of something. Everybody said, cool, let's buy more Nikes. And Nike ain't doing nothing for you guys. Nike makes a whole bunch of their shoes, not just in China. They make them in the prisons, in the prison pipeline system. See, there's a system that has to be put on trial. Oh, I said, can we hold the system accountable if it doesn't have a face or identity? Well, see, that's a great point my wife brings up, and that's why we have to put an identity to it. We have to put a culture to it. All this stuff is connected to a culture, and if we see who this is, then we can start getting past this. Because even the whole thing of black versus white is something that's the people who are really the culprits of this want you to be a part of. The very Bill Gates that says he's trying to save everybody's life is in Africa, telling everybody, that we need to make sure that, we don't have any babies anymore. The same Bill Gates that owns all his farmland is the very Bill Gates that's going to turn around and tell you and I, he has hundreds of thousands, some people say up to 300,000 acres of land. He's the very same person that will tell you that we don't have any land to make sure people can be on because, we have an overpopulation problem. This is the system you're in. We got to put the system on trial. These are the leaders of the system because the corporations are over your government. That's the way the system works. That's the way your system works. Sambo type spirit, yeah. Got assaulted by police and slammed on the face. Now you had neurological damage, permanent, painful. Hmm. You know, and people would dismiss what what was just said there. You know, I'm pretty sure Empress has told people, and people just like, yeah, whatever, okay, or we can't change the system, or we don't know how to do. Like, hey, stop talking about police brutality in court. Let's talk about circumventing civil rights. Let's talk about the fact that she's not able to make things that they say you're supposed to make in capitalism, right? Then you have a different case. But people just ignore it and act like it doesn't happen, including our own, because sometimes we just say it's not going to get any better. How you doing, Miss Modesty? KW says mass manipulation of the mind. They still got us fooled this very day. Yep, Gator Baby seen it too. Said throw the whole system in the trash. I went out away from the wicked. How you doing, Benjamin? Capitalism isn't nothing but legal slavery. It's attached to it for sure. It's part of capitalism. That's all the Civil War was on. Let's bring another exhibit in, right? All the Civil War was about was capitalism versus slavery. And by the way, it was against chattel slavery. Now, chattel slavery still exists within capitalism, but chattel slavery didn't care about capitalism, because in chattel slavery, look, the people who are on top is very clear, and everybody else, you just make money off of whoever's on top, right? And capitalism, it was, we have to give the appearance that everybody's on top, but if we lock you up, we still can make you a slave. So capitalism is actually, in a sense, more dangerous than chattel slavery, because capitalism is dressing it up. And that's why we have this north-south rhetoric too, because we think that only Southerners care about chattel slavery, but Northerners are the ones that helped to make sure we got to the 13th Amendment. And they told you right in the amendment, they didn't lie to you, but a lot of us aren't versed in law. However, when you read the 13th Amendment, they didn't lie to you. They said, yeah, okay, you can't be a slave just because you're black. However, if you get arrested for something, then you're a slave. They turned around and arrested a bunch of black people, and then they put them right back on plantations. And we only focus on, the South when they did that, but we forget that they were doing that, like I said earlier, in New York, in Maine, in Massachusetts, don't forget, right before the Civil War, a little bit before it, I can't remember the president's name, but president number 15. I see his face, but I can't remember his name. But right before Lincoln, when Lincoln was in 1858, saying that when he was going to run for president, he still thought black people were inferior to white people. But he also, but during that time, there was a famous Supreme Court case where the guy was trying to say that, hey, I'm in a different place. Slavery is not supposed to exist up here. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. Black people really don't have rights. That's kind of sort of what it is. Now, I know that's not exactly what they put on paper, but read between the lines. That's basically what they said. Like, yo, y'all really don't have any rights. Don't forget that we had this, don't forget, people think that black people were considered to be 3/5 of a human being. That's not true at all. You were considered to be 0% of a human being. The 3/5 compromise existed before they straight up officially said black people were not human beings. Now, they had said it already in the Constitution, if you read it carefully, right? That's why they talk about people. They talk about men in the Constitution, right? And in the Declaration of Independence. Read them carefully. They talk about men. They talk about savages. Those are black people or colored people or copper-colored people who were slaves, right? And then there are also talk about who? The bond. They never mention the word slave. So you'll hear people talk about America was trying to get away from slavery, and then they lie. George Washington, he didn't think, he didn't know what to consider about slavery, so he just kicked it down the road. But he knew that it needed to end. George Washington married his wife Martha because she had just as many slaves as he did. That's why he married her. That's a fact said by George Washington. One of the reasons why he loved Martha was because that she had just as many slaves as he did. He was going to double up. That was attracted to him, and he knew back then women didn't have rights. So once he married her, he took her slaves. And he was in charge of them, and she ain't had no power but to listen to whatever he said. That's the system that needs to be put on trial, but we don't talk about the system. We always talk about the person. You said, who decided what happened to the former slaves? What went north? Was it that went north? Was it the North? The North technically did. The North is the Union. And every president, by the way, one of his number one gigs, if not his number one gig, is to preserve the Union. You got to look at the system. Empress said, don't usually expose my life. you know, but that's what you deal with constantly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll definitely try to be as much help as we can. Leaving, we'll listen to the replay. Okay, thank you for being on Tree Living Water, Tree by Living Water. It said, when I realized he's the highest of the high, only kingdom truths. Hey man, how you doing, Shabbos? My wife said, but it was different time. How could you say that about the first God / president of USA? Yeah, that's something else I talked about today on the Patreon, right? If you haven't seen it yet, or it might not be uploaded. Wow, excuse me. But that's something else I talked about today. Um, People say, you know, it was a different time. It was a different time. But anyways, when people talk about the Three-Fifths Compromise, the Three-Fifths Compromise was something that existed before they officially came out and said black people wasn't. The Three-Fifths Compromise was that basically you had the southern states. And remember, the southern states, some of them were even bigger than what we know them to be today. There was no North Carolina, South Carolina. It was just Carolina. That's why we call them the Carolinas affectionately now, because it just used to be one Carolina. It didn't used to be Virginia and West Virginia. It just used to be Virginia. And both Virginia and Carolina were taking over all these different places. Thank you, Emmanuel. Appreciate it. So, in all these things, right, they had this huge power. And so they were supposed to be paying taxes after they had just fought for not paying taxes. Now they were having people pay taxes. Catch the system, wickedness, cognitive dissonance. So they realized, though, the same way the king was saying to protect y'all worldwide, everybody else in the world got to pay taxes. Why don't y'all? And they say, you know what? Now we are to fight against you. And we're going to say, even though the legal American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, now we're going to say, we are the Americans. We're going to wear blackface, copper face, if you will. We're going to throw the T over the side of the boat. We're going to wear the stuff that we scalped off of other people. And we're going to say, now we're the Americans. They fought against the British. Now they say, okay, all that stuff we fought against and all that stuff we killed each other for, and all the British people that didn't even want to be British and had to run once we won, all y'all that are left, what we fought for, we got to tax you anyways. So they start taxing, and basically, if we fast forward a tiny bit, we have now the North and the South are supposed to be paying taxes, but the North is like, yo, y'all have more. Why are we paying equal taxes? If you guys have more, you should pay more. Sounds familiar to something we're talking about nowadays, right? The rich should pay more. You know, why are you guys getting this? The rich shouldn't have tax breaks, blah, blah. Same fight. It's been the same thing, the same system. Let's stop dealing with the people or the decade or whatever. Let's start dealing with the system. Same system that's being argued against, fought against, whatever. So these people who are fighting and arguing as far as the system is concerned, they say, you know what? They say fine, you know, and this is Virginia. By the way, don't forget your first 4 out of 5 presidents, Virginia slave owner. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson is the 3rd president. Fourth president is Madison. 5th president is Monroe, right? Don't forget that John Adams and John Quincy Adams, father-son team, they both lived in the White House with Smith. In the White House, you had slaves under you, both slave owners. Don't forget that right after that is Andrew Jackson, Tennessee slave owner. Don't forget the next is Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren from New York slave owner. List goes on and on, right? So these presidents are setting precedent if we would just pay attention. And let's look at the system that they represent and the system they have to uphold. Anyways, though, Virginia and the Carolinas and other southern states say, okay, you know what, fine, we got more, this and that or whatever, so we'll pay more in taxes as far as our property. But eventually, fast forward a little bit further, the North says, well, wait a minute, y'all got slaves down there. You got people down there, right? Why don't you pay taxes on your people? Because at the North, you know, we treat them like, we got to pay on them like people. Why aren't you paying what we have to pay on your slaves? Even though they technically were lying about it and you didn't have to mention everything and you didn't have to write everything down. You had books that you kept that were real and then you had books that you presented. Nevertheless, that was their argument to try and get the South to have to pay more taxes than them. South says, how do we get around that? Okay, well, we don't consider them to be people. They're bond. They're slaves. They have no value. They're not people. So there was already a 3/5 compromise that said the South had to pay 60% of the taxes, North had to pay 40%. Now, the North is saying, hey, maybe we should up that percentage because you got more slaves than us. The South says, oh, no. Down here, we do chattel slavery. Chattel slavery, they're not people. So they don't count. But they said, well, you got to pay something on them. So the South eventually says, okay, we'll include black people. They're not even people, but black things, because that's what they considered us. They said, we'll put them in the same group as property. Therefore, we had to pay 3/5 of tax on a carriage or on land or whatever, if we'd have to pay 3/5 tax on food or tea, then we got to pay 3/5 tax on this slave. So they considered, the reason they paid 3/5 of a tax on you is because they considered you to be 0% human being. We've taught, and I used to think, and you used to say sometimes that you were 3/5 of a human being, or even sometimes I still slip up by accident and say 3/5. We weren't even 3/5. That's the system. You said you find it odd that the majority of the presidents have been related. Well, it's not odd. We know it's the system. It's the same family. It's keeping it in the family. Yeah, DC was part of Virginia. By the way, who gave DC up to be Washington, DC? George Washington himself. If you go, we just showed this for y'all who were, what was it, earlier this week, I believe, when Monday, Tuesday, somewhere around there, Monday probably, and stopped at the National Mall and showed you guys, yeah, look at the Washington Monument, the obelisk, and then look at the goddess Columbia on top of the Congress building. If you know the story of Isis and Osiris and how Heru or Horus comes into being, it's the same thing. But while they're telling you there's separation of your religion versus the state, or your church versus the state, which is why you should be careful about them churches and stuff, even to the circus. But really, reality is that these deists, these people that believe that they would become gods, just like Kemetic people believe they would become gods. Like, for example, why was the ninth? People don't know, like the 10 plagues of Kemet. If you look at those 10 plagues of Kemet, why were those 10 plagues of Kemet important in the manner that they happened? There was a goddess of there was a nectar of the water. And so the water turned into blood. The blood more powerful than the water. There was a nectar of frogs. So, hey, we have more control over the frogs than you do, right? There was a nectar over the cattle, right? Matter of fact, remember, they had the golden calf. We're going to attack the cattle. We're going to show you that there's this and that, right? There was a nectar of good health, boils. There was a nectar of the sky, right? All these different things. And Ra, right, was the nectar of the sun, so to speak. Right, there's actually somebody else who carried the sun too, but so you have to actually comprehend the different sects, or SECTS, the different groups and beliefs, just like there's different beliefs in Christianity, different beliefs in Muslim, being a Muslim, etc. Right, so you got to just comprehend. A lot of people talk about this stuff and don't even recognize that different people had different beliefs about this, and a lot of people believed in there being one nectar that was overall. Nevertheless, right, Ramses II and the pharaoh of Kemet, he was supposed to be the physical manifestation of Ra. And he was supposed to be going, once he died and went to his pyramid, he was supposed to be going back to his position. So he was the reason why, if you notice, even in some of these movies they've made, he'll say, I'm the reason the sun rises and the sun sets. That's because that's who he was supposed to be. So the ninth plague was dealing specifically with him. And remember what Moses told him is, hey, y'all just dealt with you. This is the context of the conversation, right? He keeps coming back. Hey, Moses, talk to Elohim, have him get over this, talk to Yahweh, have him do away with this. Finally, he dealt with him. And that's like, that was a low blow for him. That was a stomach punch. Like, I'm supposed to be over the sun, and yet the sun went down and I can't get it to rise. Moses comes back. And then Pharaoh's getting ready to say, like, yo, I'm about to do something to your people. Moses says, be careful. See, because you want to be a netcher, you want to be Elohim, you want to be this deity, this godlike figure, whatever you want to call it. He says, all right, Ramses, be careful. Whatever comes out your mouth next, because the Most High already showed you that he has power over what you say you have power over. Whatever comes out your mouth next, since you want to be who you say you're supposed to be, if you want to be that, whatever comes out your mouth next, he's going to touch and agree with it. And then Pharaoh spoke it. That's what happened to his son. And the very first plague, which had to do with the water turning to blood, the Most High now comes and says, I'm going to use the blood of the lamb to show that all this time it's always been about my plan to reestablish who I am, right? So this is nectar behavior that George Washington shows. He thinks that he is a deity. That's why you call him the father of your nation, even though he's not the first president, because he believed he was the father. He was a Mason. He's a 33rd degree Mason. And he believed that you should bow down and worship him. that people still visit that obelisk to this day to bow down and worship him. So my wife said they called them 3/5 humans, so they didn't have to pay as much property tax. Yeah, exactly. So how about yeah? I'm sorry. All these things are popping up in different order. I'm trying to make sure I catch the order. There's a book called Gods and Generals. Matter of fact, if we're not careful, we're doing the same thing now. People talk about the basketball gods, the baseball gods. See, we got to put this on trial. Like, this is a system. It's bigger than just the United States. It's bigger than Rome. Before there was Rome, there was Greece. Before there was Greece, there was the Medo-Persians. Before it was the Medo-Persians, it was Babylon. Before it was Babylon, it was Assyria. Before it was Assyria, it was Kemet. Before it was Kemet, it was Cush. Cush is the father of Nimrod, and Cush is the one who started the whole thing, trying to usurp the Most High's authority and lost. Nimrod is the one who took his place, and then Nimrod's mother, who was his father's wife and then became his own wife, is the one that you get Ishtar, Easter from. Still is prevalent in your society. It's a system. Yeah, the goat, greatest of all time, or even look at the goat. The goat is something to be sacrificed. The goat is supposed to be a deity, a god. Half man, half goat is something that a lot of people were into sexually. That's where those high heel shoes come from. They were designed for men, so they'd make you look like a goat, so you'd be more attractive as an adolescent. Thank you, Knight. Appreciate it. Said the fifth wheel, RV guys. Oh, yeah. They working for their family or working for the weekends. But these are all these are all discussions. I'm trying to see if I need to go there or not. We might come back to that real quick. But these are all discussions. You said, how is a goat attractive? If somebody's in the bestiality. It's a culture. And we got to put the system, that culture on trial. We got to put it on trial. Do you know? See, people watch this. People think that the subconscious and all this stuff is stuff that was always talked about and the Greeks talked about and all this stuff. Like where the subconscious really picked up. The reason why you believe there's a such thing as a subconscious. That's why I tell people be careful about these terms that we use. The subconscious came from Freud, Sigmund Freud, and we know that Freudian values are not factual. They're not. Oh, hey, baby, there's somebody on here, user 6885, saying that they tried to reach out to you. I don't know if you're still on or not. If so, if you're trying to reach out, you can also DM us. You can direct message us. I'm gonna make it on my end where you are. If you follow us or whatever, then I just followed you, so you can go ahead, send us a DM, and I can make sure that we get back to you if she's not able to reach to you through the live. Yeah, high heels were made for men. A lot of people don't know that. That's something that was made back in the day. A lot of people don't know that. Like that, high heels were not made for women. That's why women who wear high heels, a lot of women that wear high heels, they're starting to link issues with women's ability to have babies to the fact that they might have worn high heels too much, because it messes with the angle that the body's supposed to be at for her to be able to be more protective over her womb. That's why high heels hurt, ladies. Oh, okay. She's saying she didn't see anything. If you want to maybe try and DM us or something like that, or if you want to look in the on TikTok, if you want to look where it says, once again, the website, and click on that, the link tree, and just contact us at one of the places on there. We'll make sure that we get back to you. Thanks for the love. I think it's bundle of joy. Yeah, but we are not aware of that. So now it's become what? Feminine to wear high heels, even though, ladies, y'all wearing high heels is actually very masculine. That's why, ladies, you'll wear high heels to come into the venue, and then as soon as you get a chance, them things come off. And I'm not saying, I get it. Like, if you love your heel, like, it is what it is, right? I'm just trying to tell you, like, this is where this stuff comes from. There's a culture, and we got to put the culture, we got to put the system on trial. The system is wicked. There's no, when people say that they don't believe in they don't believe in anything random, they don't believe in mistakes, or they don't believe in this and that, they're gonna be mistakes, but their stuff is not like somebody had a thought process behind everything that's there. The only reason why women started wearing high heels is because men were going after men so much that they felt like they weren't getting any play. So you start wearing high heels. Now maybe now some people be like, oh, they don't look exactly like high heels today, but that's where that whole thing started. That's where that whole thing started. Right? So we got to put the system on trial. Why is it that a lot of people like Napoleon? Right? Who was Napoleon trying to be? Napoleon Bonaparte? Who was he trying to be? Right? Who was Napoleon trying to be? Yeah, no coincidences, right? Who was Napoleon trying to be? Why do people love Napoleon? Why do people want to be like Napoleon? Who was Napoleon trying to be? Who did Napoleon reference when he said he was trying to take over the world? Who was his reference? Who was he trying to be? He was trying to be another Caesar. He was trying to be another Alexander. Right? Now check out who tried to be Napoleons. Right? Check out who tried to be Napoleons. Napoleons. Who were trying to be Napoleons? Hitler, Stalin. But those same people who will admit that what Hitler did is bad and what Stalin did is bad, Stalin killed more people by far than Hitler did. However, those same people that will look bad at Hitler, where you say Trump, like, I guess, did he mention he's trying to be like Napoleon? Maybe. I mean, he was trying to be king. That's what the Time magazine stuff was. So I guess you could say that, right? I didn't even think about that. That's a great point. So, but at the end of the day, look at all these people. They're trying to be what came before them. They're going to tell you what came before them. They are trying their hardest to be what came before them and trying to keep up the same culture. But they will tell you, though, that Hitler and Stalin, and I guess we want to put Trump in there and whomever else, right? We can add others in there, right? But they'll try to tell you that, oh yeah, they're trying to be biblical. All these wars they were fought because of the Bible. First of all, even when people try to say that about the Crusades, which we have to admit that they used the Bible, but they used the Bible incorrectly. If you look at this, like do a study. Matter of fact, there's a great. My wife and I watched this thing called Extra History on YouTube. Go look it up. Now you have to be careful. You got to know some things because they're still going to come from a very Eurocentric perspective, right? But go look it up when you have a chance on YouTube and look up Extra History. They did an excellent all around work with the Crusades. Go type in Extra History Crusades on YouTube and watch. It's probably like 4 or 5 parts, and see how wild the belief system was. See how wild the Pope was. See how wild the people who led. See how there was a guy who called himself a deacon and had all his followers, but he wasn't even a deacon. Like, I'm telling you, you will see some stuff and be like, that's not even biblical. And they didn't even know the Bible. They had women out there fighting who had never fought before, men out there fighting who never fought before. And they would fight each other. One of the reasons why it was so hard for them to take over the land of Israel at first was because they had to keep fighting each other first, because all of them kept trying to be kings. And by the time they made it over there, it was difficult because they weren't working together and they had beat each other up. Some of these armies that have gone out, because there were multiple armies, it wasn't a united front. All the Pope said, the Pope basically, this is what happened. See, we got to put the system on trial. The Pope at the time saw that Europe was beating the brakes off each other. Now he's supposed to be the king of kings. He's the vicar. The Pope is supposed to be over everybody. How can you be over everybody if everybody's killing each other off, though? He's losing power. So he says, okay, you see those brown and black people that are over there? He says they're the infidels. Yeah, my wife said the Pope was murderous and sadistic. Yeah, he said they're the infidels. He said go kill them, because see, we believe in the real Bible, and the Bible that we believe in, it says that we're Israel. That's what he did. Same thing that's going on in Israel today. Interestingly enough, when people say, oh, you're doing this, you're just making this up. No, I don't have to go off of just Bible alone. Like I can look at even his story that we're putting on trial today, and his system that we're putting on trial today. I can look at his story and say, look at your own story. We have precedents, right? We have precedents where the same thing that was happening back then is going on today. It happened in the 1940s, right? In the late 1800s. There was no such thing as the Middle East until the late 1800s. So how are you going to tell me that what was Africa is now Middle East? The only reason is because you had England, and England said, okay, we're in the West. That's why you get the Western world. And they said the Western Empire, Western world. England said, we're in the West and we're world power. And they said, if you're east of us, you ain't quite West. If you're way far against the Pacific Ocean, you're far east. So what do you get? Far east, you got east. Well, anything in the middle is Middle East. We believe that the middle, right? But if you're not aware of that, you'll think that the Middle East is something that's been there. And so you're even using terms that are based off of superiority of some people that ain't superior, because you had to teach them simple things like how to make sure that they kept themselves clean. Uh-oh. Salah. Right? How you doing, Chef? And family, if anybody else is listening. Said the sound just went down. I hope it didn't. We might have some signal issues. Hopefully everything's going well, though. It's raining really bad, if you can hear in the background. That's why I'm underneath here today. But yeah, so we have this thing that's going on, and we're not being honest. How you doing, Sister Benita? So we're talking. So people to talk about, oh well, the Middle Eastern people, they don't even look like what you're describing them to look like. So how can they be Israel or whatever? It's like nobody even those people that live there today, they don't even live there. How you doing, Sheila? Thanks for being on with us today. They didn't even live there. They weren't even the people that lived there. Don't forget that Star of David. That was some. That's not even a. There's nothing in your Bible that talks about a Star of David because it didn't exist. How you doing, Cypher? It didn't even exist. Why am I speaking on something? Why are we arguing about stuff that didn't exist? Because we don't know any better, and because the victor told you that. To the victor goes the spoils. To the victor goes the treasure. It's a Rothschild family crest on the Israelite flag, which means that that's not Israel. There's a mark right on the flag. The people that control your beast, your government, they put a mark on the flag and told you that that's the center of society. And black people out here wearing that flag, not even seeing what's going on. Everything goes to that family, just about. In a sense, the Star of Malak, which is a play on the word, well, the Star of Malek or Malak is a play on the word Malak, and Malak is actually talking about king. But they tried to make that deity, if you will, that God, nature, deity, etc. They tried to make it, their king. So, right, but that star, which was a red star originally, before he changed his name to Rothschild, I forget the guy's original name, but the guy who started the banks and everything, that star was in red on his door, on his front door for the longest time. That's the same star. It's a family crest, right? Now you can say that possibly it has a connection, because he took that crest from, people who were, I wouldn't even call them pagan, because pagan is a people, not necessarily a religion, but people who had pagan ideals or values, I guess. So you could definitely make a connection there for sure. But we're not aware of those things. We're not aware of those things at all. The Red Shield, yeah. Have been researching and saw the Rothschild dynasty and their roles in society up to this day. Yeah. The Queen of England married into the Rothschild family. Barbara Bush married into the Rothschild family. And I told y'all, like I talked to George Bush, like had a one-on-one conversation, everything with him, and was a decent person when I was talking to him. But you got to recognize what he upholds is something different. Hopefully the rain's not too loud. It's definitely picked up some. So you saw a video of the Pope kissing hands of Rothschild family. Yeah, these people are all connected. All your banks, the Bank of England, that's tied to Ashkenazi, Khazarian, Rothschild. Federal Reserve, same thing, right? The bank of wherever you want to go, the Bank of France, the Bank of Italy, whatever their names for them are, they give you these weird names so that you think that they're part of the government, but the government reports to them. Remember, capitalism is defined as politics and economics that's used to control trade and industry, and the trade and industry is wielded by the government. Uh-oh, some rain must have fell on. Some rain must have just fell on the YouTube device. Starting to get a little rainbow on there. But yeah. So we got to put the system on trial. You got to comprehend racism is real because even though it's a social construct or a system based on a social construct, there are real consequences. But don't only get stuck on black versus white, or you'll miss the spirit of these things. Remember, we talked about the spirit of addiction yesterday. There's a spirit. There's a pneumatical thought, a stoic thought that marries the body, the soul, and the spirit together. There's a spirit to it. There's a spirit to it. Real talk. There's a what? There's a spirit to it. How you doing, Miko? And once again, a reminder: those who are in the Central North region, once again, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, Michigan, etc. I know there's some people even in like Missouri that are somewhat close or whatever. And if you guys want to come up, we're looking at the last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of this month. If y'all want to come up and say hello to us, we're going to be up in that area, probably in Chi-Town area. So we hope to see you guys very soon if you're up in that area. Hey, how you doing, Grand Rising Allen? How you doing, 8 If I didn't say so already, I feel like I might have said that already. The Chosen 144. X, how you doing? So we're dealing with a system. You got to put that system on trial. See, that system, it goes deeper because don't forget the Greeks and the Romans, they weren't considered what you would call to be white people. They weren't considered to be white people either. You know, look up a Roman emperor called Septimius Severus. Septimius Severus, he's African, straight up African. So is his family. He was dark-skinned. Thanks for being part of the community. What's that, 2345 Rooster? How you doing? Like, he was dark-skinned. But you think that everybody in Rome was white. Look at pictures of Justinian and Theodora. Right, where you get the Justinian decree from, when he does his business in the 400s and in the 500s, that's when the Roman Empire says because of what he did for them, they now have authority to become the Holy Roman Empire. In the 500s, right, 538 AC. You got to put the system on trial. And they weren't white people by the social construct. There's an evil thing. The whole white-black thing has been added on there, as Willie Lynch said that they would, to make sure that every time you get back in touch with your society and your community, who we were originally as humanity, and as Yastel, and as Afrique, and as Alkebalan, and as Shwe, and as Mali, and as Timbuktu, and as whomever, Cherokee, Choctaw, Taino, Omekshi, Ireland, whatever it is that you want to claim, the whole goal is to get you off to where you won't recognize the spirit for what it is, the pneumatical thought for what it is, the psychology for what it is, the culture for what it is. Division is a goal of division. I'm sorry, Rhonda, what you said? You said this is the history that they want to keep secret. Yeah, that's why we have to put the system on trial. When you start thinking about the system, the culture, now you got a way out. Your key to getting out is not to be against people, right? We wrestle not against flesh and blood. What do we wrestle against? We've been saying this for quite some time now, for about a week plus now. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. We wrestle against what? Principalities. Principalities are what? Origins. This stuff originated before there was a such thing as a white person. Dismemberment of the existing body? Yeah. No, thank you, Minister Sony. Right? Like, we got to get away from wrestling flesh and blood. Right? Now, systemically, I have to recognize that somebody who does not look like me has an opinion about me, whether they want to admit it or not. And they'll have to be honest about that opinion because of the system we live in. However, I'm not going to automatically degrade people or say that somebody's entire family is evil because of what other people put in place, right? I have to be aware of system. That's the only reason why we talk about racism, is because racism is a system, right? And be in the system, not of it. So if I walk around, right, if I'm in the state of Mississippi and I walk around Mississippi and I know that I come from a place where Mississippi be burning, then I've got to be honest about where I am systemically. It doesn't mean that I cannot meet somebody and that we cannot have a system that has us out of the system. In other words, we can be ambassadors where our feet tread. It belongs to us. So we can come together, 2 or 3 of us gather together, and him, then the Most High be present in our midst, even in the midst of an oppressive system, therefore being in the system, however, not of it. However, I cannot dismiss that there is a wicked system. And people want us to just completely dismiss the wicked, vile, putrid system that's here. Thank you, Cypher, because it's true. You got to deal with the, if there's a system, see, watch this. Once again, what does the word spirit mean? Ravak mean. Ravak, even in the Hebrew, we're talking about something that is the head, that nails something in place, right? That is in the hands of something or someone. If you're in a system, a spirit, a system, then there's a spirit to it because there's a head to it. Something keeps it in place, so it keeps on turning. And what? It's in somebody's hand. There's got to be a spirit to every system. The word spirit. Now we look at this word spirit in the Greek, and we come out of just the Hebrew ravak, and we go into the Greek. The pneuma, pneumatical thought, is stoic thought that marries the mind, the body, and the soul together, or the spirit, the body, and the soul together. Which means that in the Greek context, you cannot have a mindset or a mind or a spirit of something without talking about you being a whole or holy person. Or even esprit de corps, right? Which is a spirit of corps, of corporation, of cooperation, even if you will. There's a spirit attached to racism because there's a mindset. You can't systematically put a system of racism in place and it be systemic and there not be a mindset. We got to put the system on trial. And unfortunately, one of the cogs in the system is this system called racism. Thanks for the love, Bounty. There's a system in place, and we don't want to admit it. A core, right? A corporation, a body. Remember, even you as a person, if you're in the sovereignty, you can become a corporation. Or you can be a corpse, even. A dead body, but still a body. You can be a dead corporation, but still a corporation. The devil is over a dead following, a dead system. It is already defeated. However, he is what? He's still over it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Right. The devil is still over the dead corporation. He's still over the dead body, but he's over it. He's over a zombie, but zombies are still dangerous. That's why I come that you might have life and more abundantly. Why? Because you might be going through and you look alive, but zombies look alive to a certain extent. Zombies can walk around. Zombies can eat. Right. Zombies can look at things. Zombies exist. You can be a zombie and still not be alive. I got to put the system on trial that says that you're a zombie and you should stay that way rather than be alive. You said it's not, they don't want to admit it. They want their chance to shine in it. Well, yeah. I mean, but you can't admit, like, for example, here's something lawfully, getting back to law. We said we're going to talk about law. We're putting this on trial today, right? We're just giving exhibits and you're going to be the judges for yourself. Study, show yourself approved, pray about it, bring it to the Most High. And if what I'm saying makes sense, therefore use it in a manner in which what you will not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word, right? The Sabar, the scrolls of what? Of truth. Okay. Peep this, peep game, peep game. Um, there's a problem in the system to where somebody says, I don't feel alive, and somebody says you're being a victim. Yeah, CDC has zombie awareness stuff on there. And then they put it on there and then they try to be playful with it. Oh, we're just playing. Peep game though. There's a problem if somebody says I'm in a system and I don't feel alive, and somebody comes along and says, well, you're a victim. Stop being a victim mentality. Should a victim feel alive? And should we not take into account that a victor had to create the victim? I'm sorry, Lisa, you said, yeah, Grand Ramsey, you said going into a meeting. We'll finish the recording. Okay, amen. Thanks for being on. Be safe. Or well, I'm glad you got to where you need to be safe, and have a great time at your meeting, right? If somebody tells me I don't feel alive in something, what kind of wicked system says my first response should be stay in it, get over it, stop being a victim? Like, let's put the system on trial. Right? If somebody tells me I feel like I am not alive in your system, I'm not recognized, why is the first response get over it, stop talking about it, stop being a victim? Is that wicked or not? Yeah, and someone tells you you're the problem. Is that not wicked? I'm telling you, I do not feel alive in this system. I do not feel like I'm getting what I need from this system. I do not feel like I'm credited by the system. I feel like every time I turn around and I do something, somebody will take it. I feel like if I say that I am black woman, somebody comes up and says, why do you have to say black? Why can't you just say woman? If I say that I am a black person, why does somebody say that you can't be black, you got to be person? Even in our own community now, we're arguing. Stop saying that you're black. Stop saying that you're more. Stop saying that you're Israel. Stop saying that you're native. Stop saying that you're African American. Whatever it is, right? We are fighting against each other. What kind of wicked system sets it up to where you are going to be ostracized and demeaned and have to be disgusted by simply presenting your point of view and saying, I am not alive in this. I'm waking up, I'm going to work and doing the same thing. So my wife said, the perp always says, don't look at me, get over it. It never happens. Right. Like, you're in a system where your people have been RAP, you know what, D, over and over again, not even figuratively, even though that's happened figuratively. I'm talking about literally. Right? Breaking bucks and outright being libertines. Benjamin Franklin, slave owner who was a libertine. What does a libertine mean? Libertine was a fancy way of saying that somebody can't stop having sex. And there was a whole community of libertines. They said, well, you know what? We're just libertines. We're not going to try and be better about it. When Benjamin Franklin went over, and as he was talking to France to try and finance stuff, he was laying down with all these women. He was a libertine. And it was okay. He was looked at as somebody that was great for being a libertine and always having sex with everybody else, including his slaves. But then somebody says something's wrong with that. And people say, you're a reverse racist. How dare you bring that up? But you want me to celebrate July 4th, 1776. Why you bring that up? It's excellent. You got to be excellent at gaslighting when you can live in that much cognitive dissonance. You want me to talk about, by the way, independence. When you wrote the Declaration of Independence, you told me that I was not a person. But then when I talk about the people who have been affected by not being people, and the people that still legally, technically, you could say they really don't have to address us as people. That's why you don't consider yourself to be black or Negro or color in a court of law. Right? You need to be a natural person or a natural man, natural woman. They consider a human being to be a detriment in a court of law. You're not even supposed to be a human being. Isn't that something wicked about that system? to where if I talk about my humanity, they define it as monstrous. I'm not making that up. Look up in the Black's Law Dictionary the definition of human, right online right now, and you will discover that when you look up that definition of human, you have to actually go and refer to the definition of monster. And when you look up a monster is someone who has no rights. Yeah, nobody ever talks about what they did to your men and how they were RAP, you know what, your men. In front of the other men, in front of the women, to usurp their authority and assert their dominance. They learned that they got the wrong lessons from nature. They be sitting there talking about, well, you know, there's giraffes that do that to one another. You ain't a giraffe, number one. And number two, so what? Even if a giraffe does it, they still fight each other or try to usurp dominance because they want women. Why are you doing that? Because you think that somebody's an animal and you're attracted to animals, that whole goat-like behavior. So even while RAP, you know what, our women, you still call them animals. What does that make you? See the cognitive dissonance? We got to put the system on trial. There's something wicked. You're not trying to be divisive, but the U.S. is already providing money for the Ukrainian people to have counseling. Yeah, I mean, most definitely. Matter of fact, Joe Biden has made the point to say, we'll fly everybody from the Ukraine that we can over to the United States, and we'll allow them to just come in. They don't have to go to the border. You know, they don't have to go to Mexico and come in, or Canada come in. They don't have to be like, you know, these Mexicans, these brown people, whatever. Thank you, Bounty. Appreciate it. They can just go ahead and come right in. And then any Africans that might happen to get on the flight with them, we're going to do the same thing that we do with them in Europe. We're going to fly them right back to Africa. If you don't believe this, once again, I'm not telling you what I've heard. I'm telling you what I know. Going on a flight, going to, we're all trying to get to Africa. We have to go through Belgium. Belgium, one of the most racist places on the planet still. We got to fly there, though. Belgium doesn't allow people who have an African, basically have an African passport from any African nation. They don't allow them to be able to stay in their country. So they can't go out into Belgium. We have an American passport, right? So we could go ahead and stay. But we flew over and they were really late getting us to fly out. I think a BWI, it was, I think we went from Florida to BWI or from Georgia to BWI, something like that. Got the BWI, it took forever. So we ended up leaving extremely late, and therefore we had to spend the night over in Belgium. So we were able to go out and get a hotel. And as my wife rested, I actually walked around and went to different places or whatever. And, I walked around, went to different places, went through all these different things and looking for a place. And, looking around at places and different things, whatever, getting all these dirty looks, whatever. Watch television programs that were extremely racist. Everybody else who got to Belgium, even though it wasn't our fault that we got there too late for them to make their connecting flight, they flew them back to America. They flew them right back to America. What was that, 10, 11, 12-hour flight, something like that, flew them right back. So they would have to then go on a flight again back to Belgium and hope that the connection was on time so they could then make it over back to West Africa. Some of them were going to Ethiopia, some were going to go, in whatever connecting flights they had to take from there, right? That's legit what happens today, right? I'm telling you not what I've heard about, what I've experienced, right? They didn't want me to be able to go, but they couldn't stop me because of what my passport said as far as authority that I had. So they had to let it go. My wife too, right? They had to let her stay. But others, they had to go right back because they don't consider them to be human beings over there. So that's what you're dealing with already. That's the European vibe. So in Ukraine, they're doing the same thing. They're going to take them from Ukraine, fly them over to America. And those that are African, we're going to ship you right back over. But Biden told y'all, he told y'all, shoot, if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. You should have heard what he was really saying. Because black is a slave. If you don't vote for him, you ain't a slave. You ain't in the slave mentality. You need to be a slave. Said, did you know money is made of 75% cotton, slavery all the way around? Yeah, and black people still out there picking it. Prisoners out there still picking it. Because a chattel slave, all we gotta do is arrest you. You said the truth should not hurt or cause discord? Well, it will. It shouldn't if everybody was searching for truth, but it will because people are not trying to live in truth. They're not trying to live in context. Not trying to live in facts. They're just trying to live um, in comfort. And I used to tell people, when I did gate guard duty and stuff like that, and people would get mad, and four-star generals would be upset and frustrated, and because we had to check under their car one day, or because it was orange one day, or red this day, or yellow, and they'd be like, "Why are you doing this?" And I'm over you, and blah blah. And it's like, look, I got to do what I'm supposed to. Well, why is this even necessary? And I would ask them, do you want security or do you want comfort? And you got to ask people sometimes, do you want truth or do you want comfort? A lot of people don't want security. A woman's number one need is security. But if she can't handle truth, you can't get security, because sometimes you're going to have truth. If a man wants respect, sometimes you can't handle respect, because sometimes I respect you too much to not tell you the truth about yourself. Truth is going to cause us to come apart. Yahshua said that, Luke chapter 12. My wife said animals in captivity do different things in the wild. That's very true as well. Very true as well. Yeah, animal documentaries lie to make things more interesting. That's very true as well. Yeah. It was Dulles. Okay, thank you. It was Dulles. Sorry, I couldn't remember. It was somewhere. I can remember where it was. Thanks. Yeah, you said like they know the rules. No, they feel they're above. I mean, yeah, or you got to see the rules that are in place. This is the system. That's why you got to figure out which system. Which system are you talking about? Hello, Chill 44. How you doing? Which system? That's why, once again, we got to put the system on trial. We trying to put people on trial. Put a system on trial. See, this is where we mess up, even when we allow people to say stuff about us. You see that over there, black on black crime. That one black man did this. If he did wrong, he did wrong. If he should be forgiven, he should be forgiven. Look, that one white man did wrong. Now let's look at this though. What is the system that's in place that caused that person to do what they did? We don't want to do that, because that means we got to break down a lot of this foolishness. You can't tell me about the ghetto and then not talk about that same system has caused a trailer park. You can't talk about crack, which that system put in place on purpose, and not tell me about cocaine and crack on the other side. Don't sit there and tell me about the original Ricky Ross, and not talk about the fact that you got, I forget what the guy's name is. Who's the guy that in that movie Blow, that Johnny Depp played the character, whatever, right? Don't sit there and tell me about Ricky Ross and not bring him up, and how he was talking to the same. Matter of fact, he was higher up than Ricky Ross, because Ricky Ross never met, some of the cats that y'all know, like Escobar and all that. But Johnny Depp's character, whoever that guy is, George or something like that, he did. You said, any idea of the sale of 100% melanin? How is it possible, and what's the source? The sale of 100% melanin, like how are they selling it? Or well, some of that stuff is sold right away just because of like taking baby parts and grinding them up. In all honesty, some of those things are sold as far as they take your blood and stuff. Some of that stuff is sold as far as abortions. Some of that stuff is as far as like, they take you're supposed to use your the afterbirth longer. Your baby's not supposed to have their umbilical cord cut. Your baby's supposed to stay connected to that and get as much stuff out of the afterbirth as possible. And then once the afterbirth dies off, the umbilical cord comes off. Right. So it's basically two births that you give. Right. We call it the afterbirth, but really technically it's just a second birth. You're giving birth to two children. One child has been designed to die that the other might live. I mean, you can look at it as a sad way or whatever. It's basically one thing has had its whole existence designed to be a sacrifice. And once it detaches from the mother, it's going to sacrifice its life to make sure that the child lives. So, when people cut the umbilical cord, take the afterbirth, they chop it up. That's melanin right there. There's a lot of different things that people are doing as far as melanin. It's a documentaries of reality TV. Yep, TV, television, tell somebody the vision, the operative word. Uh-oh, sorry, it's making me skip through these comments. George John, thank you. There we go. Can't talk about R. Kelly, but and forget. Yeah, exactly, and forget about Elvis Presley, or is it Jerry Lee Lewis, um, Woody Allen? You know, a lot of them out there, right? The guy who directed X-Men, what's his face, that made sure that the black woman won for the Mammy character. He was out there messing with little boys too. Was is it Clark Gable? Was that his name? And what's his name was doing the same thing, Errol Flynn. And I grew up watching Errol Flynn. I thought, I wanted to be a sword fighter. Matter of fact, my father had us take when we were younger. We took fencing lessons. You said you felt something related to afterbirth and so forth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but but once again, you got to put the system in check. You got to put the system in check. Why is it okay for these people to do it to you, but it's not okay for you to do it to yourself or to others? Now, once again, I'm not saying it should be done. If it's evil, it's evil. However, I'm not the one in charge of the system. If you said it's up to you, somebody said, and by the way, I don't think one person should be in charge of the system because the system is going down, and I'm not in charge of the next system. Yahweh is. However, if somebody were to say, hey, you get to make the laws, what would you do? Right? Or things like that. Well, first things first, if it's evil across the board. If a black person does it and he deserves 20 years, then a white person does it, they should get 20. If a white woman does it and she should get 15 years, and a black woman, she should get 15. It shouldn't be that a white woman gets caught, paying for her daughter to go ahead and get a college education without actually having to get the education, and she only gets a 5-year sentence, possibly having to serve 6 months. But a black mother who lives in a poor neighborhood lies about a zip code, doesn't even pay anybody, and lies about a zip code to make sure that her daughter can get a better education in elementary school, has to now serve 15 years with no chance of parole. See what I'm saying? I'm not here to argue that if something's bad, it's bad. Now, first of all, somebody wanting their child to go to another zip code, that doesn't have anything to do with righteousness or not. That has to do with the fact that if you got them in a bad system, then they're trying to get out of that system by any means necessary. Right? But and exactly, see penalty that's correct or no penalty for all. Because here's the deal. Basically, there is no penalty. There is no penalty. If you can get away with something because you look different, if it's that simple, that because I look different, I can get away with something that somebody cannot. What I need you to comprehend is now there is no penalty. Your penalty is trash. That's why all these constitutions that keep changing and stuff, when laws have to keep changing over and over again, what it means is that if these laws have to keep changing, they've never existed in the first place. Right? So oppression and poverty are the worst form of violence. Amen. It causes violence. Right? The rioting and everything, that's the language of the oppressed. He said, why must the parents sneak their children to a better neighborhood to get an education? And if anything, if you really believe what you believe, then why would you not give the worst neighborhood the best education? See, you know how like, watch this. If you're into sports, that's all the draft is, right? That's what the drafts have become. You said that's exactly why we need massive black business ownership, period. Well, you got to have black land and black stuff before you even get the black business. That's what the goal has to be. You get the land. And then you start dealing with the business because the business is on your land. Now you have control. You can make up your own micronation of sorts. And you can even get into a place where you start having your own version of a UCC. And you can say how the UCC will operate on what's privately yours. You have a private place where people live privately. You have your own private entity. And then you're able to operate differently. That's the goal. That's why we got to get the land stuff together. That's why you got to get the business stuff together. That's why we got to get the virtual family together and the physical family together. Because even once we get the land, right, Once we pay for the land, it's still going to take a minute before everybody can come over. We still got to build on it. Even if we have $5 billion of it, the stuff ain't going to happen just to where, yeah, in 2 months, everybody going to come and live. There's still a process. And so we've got to continue the process to progress mentally as a people. And we got to start putting other people's stuff on trial, because there's certain things that don't need to be coming into this government. The kingdom of heaven is not the kingdom of the United States corporation. A king is not based solely upon how much money he makes. A queen is not based solely on what her body looks like. That's why we're taking this time, and I'm starting just now to talk about announcements and stuff, and not tomorrow, but next Saturday, we're finally gonna get back on track with these weekly meetings and get back on track with our YLP and stuff like that. But I had to take time out, and I'm still not 100% there, but I had to take time out to be like, okay, how can I get this stuff in order? How can we get this stuff in order? How can I make sure my wife and I are one on all this stuff before we start talking about, because if a man can't rule his house well, how in the world are he going to talk about trying to be over something else? Yeah, you don't have to watch this. If you have a trade, you don't need a degree. And trades are not necessarily only what you think. We hear trade and we think, oh, okay, build a car, do this, do that. But a trade can be, look, man, even if you can't, you don't have to have a degree to make sure that you know how to do project management. There are people that have degrees and still can't get that high in business because you got to make sure that you study that PMBOK. You know what I'm saying? Like there's still people on there. Like you can know all the stuff in the world, but if you don't know how to take what the IT field needs and be able to give it to the people that are putting the money behind it, and then be able to express to them what the IT person means, and then go vice versa. That's a trade. That's a trade. Have something that's of your own, and then watch this. If you really want to be of your own, then start dealing with people who are like-minded and believe in the same thing. And guess what? If you could ever turn it into, like, this is what used to happen in our own community. A lot of us grew up, if you can remember, if we're of a certain age, if you get to people at 50, 60 years old, it's not as uncommon as you might think for a bunch of black people to have been living on the same block. Whole block was black, next block was black, all that, and everybody owned. Even if you were poor, you owned, which meant that you could do things you can't do now. Like you could have 10 people in a home with only 2 bedrooms, but it was yours. You could do whatever you wanted. We don't have that alternative now. We've actually gotten worse. Dr. Cloud Anderson talks about that quite often, that we can keep thinking things are better because they're more modern. Things are getting worse. Things have been getting worse. We got to start sowing into our own people. Internal organs, yeah, meth, yeah. We got to start sowing into our own people. We got to start sowing into our own businesses. We have to start sowing into appreciation of each other. Gone the days, gone are the days, at least as far as anybody that's connected to me, gone are the days to where I'm going to allow, right? At least if I have anything to do with it, right? People have their own choices, but if they'll accept it, gone are the days that I'm going to allow that a mother looks to the government or looks to some big brother that doesn't even have their child's best interest at heart to be able to check off on the box that he did something nice for our community, and have that child still have no comprehension of who he is or who she is. Gone are the days of that. Like, it has to be a thing of where it becomes a must. Right? Your culture, we're at a crossroads. For the first time in quite some time, you are allowed, right? Even if this society doesn't like you, but you are allowed, that this society doesn't like you too, and doesn't like you, I guess you could say. You are in a place where you are allowed to learn your culture. For the first time in quite some time, is not something that's there. Now, most people will still give it up, or they'll say my culture is hip hop based. And look, I love me some hip hop, but look, Young Money is not my culture. I can't even defend Young Money because Young Money, right, is out here. Lil Wayne is out here telling people that white people have always helped him, and he's always gotten more flack from black people than white people, even though he'll then go on the stage and talk about Black Lives Matter, but then turn around and hook up with Trump so that he'll go ahead and get that pardon. And now the deal is he's going to never come off with the perch of black people ain't nothing compared to white people, because, you know, that was the deal. You're going to get this pardon, you're going to speak like you're supposed to. If not, we'll come back for you because we always got something on you. So I can't listen to Weezy. Never should have anyways, because he didn't prove to me from the jump that he was about our people. I'm not, and see, here's where people get it twisted. You know, you say MK Ultra, he does act like, I don't know if I'll go that far, but he does act like it. I feel you. He said, I don't want to be normal that every person, I want it to be normal that every person knows someone in prison. Yeah. You know, I forget, it's something crazy, like 1 out of every 11 or this is just the United States of America, but 1 out of every 11 or 1 out of every 12 people or something like that, that's a white man, will be in prison at some point in his life. But 1 out of every 4 black men will be, well, not prison, you know, there's jail and prison. So let's just say at least jail. 1 out of every 11, let's just say 11, something like that. 1 out of every 11 white men will be in jail someday in the United States of America. 1 out of every 4 black men will be in jail someday. Right? That's wild. Not only is that wild percentage-wise, because that means 25% of us, guaranteed, even though they're going to tell you 50% of us, you know, are there, but 50% of us make up the prison system. So that means we're going to get longer sentences. And there's more white people than there are black people in this country. But there's going to be way more of us that make up the prison population. And it's probably bigger, but, you know, there's a lot of people that don't consider themselves to be black. Yeah, we could say same thing with Kanye, all these things, right? But we got to put the system on trial. This is a wicked system. The devil is control of this system. A devil, one of the greatest working definitions of devil I ever heard is actually a NOI definition. It basically just means that a devil is somebody who devalues. A great devil is a great devaluer. That people want their own space instead of building together. Everybody pays rent $1,000 each, mine, and it's not really. Yeah, like think about it. And this is how we got together, especially at times of segregation. This is how you built companies and futures and neighborhoods. Like it used to be that 2-3 families might live in the same house. It used to be that you might have mama and daddy, and they had 12 children, and 6 of them might sleep in the same bedroom, and 3 of them slept on the living room floor, and 2 of them slept here, and the youngest one slept with mom and daddy in their room or whatever. You had all that stuff going on, but we were together. It was all right to be together. It was okay for us to be in a system where we were together. You said in Belize, you buy land and start building a family compound with multiple homes. Here, it's one house, no matter your land size. Yeah, that's why it's important to buy the land. I'd rather have land, and even if it took us, you know, 10 years to build 500 homes on the land, if that's what happened. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but I'm just saying, let's just give that as an example. Even if it took us 10 years to build 500 homes, right? At least you got the land. You know, while you're building the homes, you could be growing food, you could be doing something. Like you build a nation. And we don't like to talk about nationalism, but guess what? If you're in the United States of America and you waving the flag, that's nationalism. Don't let people use these terms and start messing with your mind. Oh, you see, they're in the black nationalism. What's if there's nothing wrong with American nationalism, then why is there something wrong with black nationalism? And if in American nationalism, you can have people that aren't American be in your country, then why are you saying that if I'm black nationalism and I believe that we should be over ourselves, then if somebody white comes in that's going to obey the rules, why are you saying that I wouldn't bring them in if you bring people in? You want to call it Israelite nationalism, right? You want to call it Avra nationalism. You want to call it Yas nationalism, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, you want to call it SOC national. I don't care what you call it. But if nationalism is all right for somebody else, why is it wrong for you? Why is that? It's because it's evil. There's an evil system here. It's cognitive dissonance. They're lying to you. While telling you you're the problem, they're lying to you about their problematic behavior. You're the problem, but we're going to do the same thing. But if you do, see, here's the deal. Because of the way their system works, they're afraid. See, we got to put the system on trial, right? Now we got to, now, see, if we're going to put it on trial, we also have to look at intent. See, there's different levels. If somebody kills somebody outright, right, there's a difference. There could be first degree, second degree, third degree murder, right? There could be murder, but you don't have the intent. You didn't have the intent to kill, but you killed somebody. We still got to deal with it. There could be somebody that says, you know what, I was very angry, and so I wasn't in a my mental health wasn't correct, so I can't be held accountable for my actions, at least not wholly. Even though even in that there's levels, right? Like even like for example, you said you wrote a poem. Okay, cool, excellent, right? Even in that, even when you're dealing in that, right? You gotta see like that. Even when somebody's dealing with a mental health challenge, or let's say like somebody has multiple personalities. By the way, somebody might not know this. Let's say somebody has multiple personalities, and somebody is going through and kills somebody, right? You know what they'll do? Even if they have multiple personalities, this is how the system works. This is the accountability that they won't hold themselves to. If somebody has multiple personality disorder, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, whatever personality you had, did that personality want to kill? Because they're still not going to separate the crime from you because that personality came from you. So even if you have a personality that's loving and free going, and then you have a personality that hates somebody and wants to kill them, if that personality kills somebody, they're still going to say all of y'all got to go to jail. But the same system will turn around and say, well, you know what? My cousin and them might have done some stuff or whatever, but I'm not responsible. My father might have done some stuff and I'm benefiting from it, but I'm not responsible. My grandfather, my great-grandfather. See, now we're getting into the times they say don't matter. But your great-grandfather, some of y'all, even if you don't remember them, some of y'all were held in your arms by your great-grandfather. And your great-grandfather might have been okay with him and the dude up because of the color of his skin, with having a woman be forced to lay down because of the color of hers. Might have been completely okay with that. But in the same country that you'll lock up somebody and say that they got too many personalities, but it doesn't matter, they all come from the same person, you'll say, well, just because you'll say, well, I can't be held accountable for what they did. Now, I'm not here to tell you which one is correct or not. I'm just saying you can't have both and say that you're actually truthful. We got to put your system on trial. Jordan Peterson can walk around, and by the way, he has some real stuff to say. I'm not saying everything he says is wrong, but Jordan Peterson can walk around and talk about how Western society is the greatest thing to happen since sliced bread. Why is it that somebody who's lesser than Jordan Peterson, or just on the same track, but a lot of times lesser than, they might get killed, and they got to walk around with security? You can't tell me that the system benefits everybody. Right now, Jordan Peterson will try to say that he's not about equal outcomes, which means that he doesn't believe in equality, which I don't either. He has a funny way of going about it, but basically he doesn't believe in equality. I don't believe in equality. Equality is a myth. No two people are the same. My wife and I aren't the same. That's why our relationship's so great, because we recognize that we're not the same. So we treat each other as individuals who come together as one. And when we do that, we actually work as one instead of fighting against each other, because we're always bringing out each other's differences. Cash said, I apologize for being so contrary in the past after going through the playlist. Your message resonates with me. Keep up the great work. No problem. Like I said, it's okay to challenge, you know. If you challenge something or whatever, you're supposed to try it. Try it out, see if it works or whatever, you know. And if you challenge it, you know, I'm going to just give a defense for what we believe. Appreciate you, though. You know, and if you find something else you need to challenge or whatever, because I'm not perfect. I'll come across something. I might be wrong about something. I try to study and make sure that I'm not bringing opinions, and try to make sure I bring contextual facts, and usually that helps to make sure that I'm not wrong, because it's not my opinion, but it's people that are higher than I, including the Most High. You know, nevertheless, though, you know, I can be wrong too. So I appreciate it, even if it might seem like I don't, you know, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate that, Kyle. I meant to say au revoir to those who are on the podcast. I forgot to. Hopefully we didn't have anybody on today that didn't know that they can come look for us on the other platforms. You know, but yeah, we have to recognize these things. We're not willing to even admit these problems. That's one of the things that's going to be on Patreon later today. I think it's loaded up and ready to go, so I just got to put it on Patreon now. But that's one of the things that is still going on today. You know, that people won't even admit. When I was talking about that, the answer is blowing in the wind. You know, I'm talking. You know, go for Patreon for more information. But that's what I was really talking about. Like, it's blowing in the wind. The answer. If you notice the lyrics of the song, it's questions, and then he's saying that we haven't even begun to look for answers because we haven't even asked the questions. That's the whole point of the song. How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail? Sorry, before she lays in the sand. Right? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they form rebel band? Right? The answer is blowing in the wind. Right? How many years must the mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years must some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times must a man turn his hand and pretend he just doesn't see? The answer is blowing in the wind. In other words, we haven't even questioned or put these things on trial. So how in the world do we look for the answer if it's listless? Right? Like, we're not even willing to ask the question. We're not even willing to what? To ask the question. We're not even willing to do what? To ask the question. Right? And since we're not willing to ask the question, how in the world do you get the answer? To admit an answer, you have to admit a question. Amen. And Yahshua is going to come back. Once again, what is it that Matthew 24:14 teaches us? Yahshua says, I'm coming back. When is he coming back? Somebody help me. When does Yahshua say he's coming back? See, once again, we got to ask the right question. He gave the answer already. His disciples asked the right question. What's going to happen when you come back? What needs to happen before you come back? They asked the right questions. He gave the answer. What did he say? Somebody help me. Anybody remember? What did he say? What did he say the answer is? It's not blowing in the wind. What is the answer to that question? It says when we begin to speak the proper interpretation, when we have one interpretation that is the same, and that's preached throughout the entire world, he says, now here I come. And you know what the scariest thing about that is? Right? If I just be honest, you know what the scariest thing about that really is? The scariest thing, that means that we have never, ever said the exact message of what the Most High has. This is a new thing for us to make sure that we're speaking what he says. That's the scary part. That's the scary part. Is that he hasn't come back because we ain't even saying what he said. Salah, right? Like that's the actual scary part, y'all, is that we haven't even said what he said. So of course he's not coming back. That's what he said. No man knows the day nor the hour because nobody knows when we're actually going to do what we're supposed to do. The Father knows it because he's what? He's omnipresent. So he was trying to say, look, it's not my place to try and tell you these things because it's on you. Yes, Yahshua must be sealed. Most definitely. Right? However, to be sealed, you got to start speaking the word. We have not been speaking the word. And we definitely haven't spoken it enough to where everybody can hear it. So we got to start putting this stuff on trial. We got to start putting it on trial. Right? We don't like to, but we have to. We got to start having an honest conversation about this. Right? It's guaranteed to happen because it's already been prophesied. So we know it's going to happen. Right? Now, what we don't know is when it will happen because it's not on the Most High. It's on you. When are you, right? Accountability, personal accountability. When are you going to start speaking things with one interpretation? Stop talking about all the applications and acting like these applications are interpretation. There are not multiple ways to interpret something. That is not a fact. I know some people don't want to hear that. That is not a fact. there are not multiple truths. It is not a fact. If you want to talk about perspectives, that's different, right? You said people don't care to hear it. Yeah, that's fine. By the way, that's not on us either. It's not on me for somebody to have to hear it or accept it, right? It's on me to proclaim it. I'm not worried about if everybody's going to accept everything I say. That ship has sailed a long time ago with me. I recognize there are a lot of people that are not going to listen to something that I have to say, especially if I don't say exactly what they want me to say, exactly when they want me to say it, exactly how they want me to say it. And it doesn't matter if that's somebody that looks like me or not. There are a lot of people that look like me that ain't trying to hear what I have to say either, because it's not about color at the end of the day only. It's about a system. Like, think about this. There are people that have literally shown their breast. There are people who are wearing next to nothing. There are people whose babies are twerking, all this stuff. And everybody lifts them up, and not one time have they had any of their channels on any platforms taken down. We have had on every platform, pretty much every platform that's ever been in existence, unless it's a platform we just don't really use anymore. We've had every single one of them taken down. Whenever we get around officially 50,000 people, or when we have videos reaching millions of people and stuff like that, we get taken down. And not one time have we cussed. Not one time have we said that you're going to hell. Not one time. Well, I won't say I've never cursed, but I might quote something, but you know what I'm saying? We ain't out here cussing. We ain't out here putting anybody down. We're not saying that men are trash. We're not saying that women are trash. We're not saying that we support the patriarchy. We're not saying that we support racism. We're not saying that everybody's racist, right? But we get taken down. Why is that? Because there's a system that says that what we stand for is wrong. And we're getting better as far as numbers, but also too, yeah, whenever we start getting stronger in numbers, that's when we got to pull it down. And by the way, this is social media. This reaches people across the world. We've had messages that have reached millions of people, right? That message reaches millions. If it reaches millions, that might be tens of millions and 100 million and then a billion. And then we ain't that far from 8 billion. Right? We talked about, when bringing this up and putting this on trial, we got to talk about intent. Right? I brought that up, right? We got to talk about intent. What is the intent? What does that show about intent? If you never feel the need to like bring me down or anything like that, right? Until people begin to say, maybe we should come out your system. So then that's when you cancel me. What is the intent? And this works across the board with others too. It's not just Kofi and what happens to me, or servants of Christ and what happens with us, or Bloom and Flourish and what happens with my wife, or 777 Solid Face, what happens with him, or whatever, right? Whatever, whomever you, wherever you fall in. It's not just us, and it's not in that order. Myself, my wife, my son, SOC, whomever else is going to be speaking and bringing up things or whatever. There's all these people. We got to start asking ourselves, like, what is the intent? Why is it that you cancel when the numbers went up? Because it's satanic. It's Satan, Shatan. Those who like to say it that way, the Satan, the devil. Right? That's what's going on. That's what's going on. We have a system to where every time that somebody starts doing something that is a threat to that system staying in position, they're going to come for you. That's what we asked before. Like, are y'all ready for that? Are we really ready for that to be? That's not a possibility. That's something that happens. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for those things to go down? We got to talk about the intent. Right, as we come in kind of towards the end of this and we get ready to take our lead, like let's make sure we talk about the intent. You know, let's be honest about the intent. What is this? Why is this happening? Why are these people doing this? What is the intent behind some of this stuff? You know, what is the intent? If you're only going to shut stuff down because people are starting to come together, not coming together to try and wipe you out, coming together out of the love of Yah, out of the love of each other, out of the love of humanity. See, whenever we put something on trial, you got to prove intent. You can't just say somebody hates me because I'm black. I got to prove it. You can't just say somebody hates me because I'm a woman. You got to prove it. You can't say somebody hates me just because of our religiosity. You got to prove it. We've laid out a bunch of information today, and it started off with people questioning what I was saying just because of the way I look, not even knowing what we actually had laid out. As we laid out these facts, if we talked about everything from George Floyd to Sandra Bland to BLM to ALM to the United States Corporation to the biblical point or perspective to all these different things to marriage to law of attraction, law of first mention, all these different things we're talking about. Have we laid out a case, so to speak, that tells us that we need to be honest about like what's going on here? Something obviously is going on here, right? Like something obviously is going on here. You said often white people come on and get scared and angry hearing a black king speaking true biblical names. Yeah. And why is that? Why is Jacob considered to be bad, but Jacob is considered to be okay? Why is Yashva something that makes people lose their mind and have to start saying, no, it's Jesus, it's Jesus, it's Jesus, it's Jesus? Why are those things? Why do those things exist? Why are we so anti something? Why if somebody says namaste, are we losing our mind? You know, if somebody wishes you peace, why are you afraid to say alaikum salam? You didn't do anything wrong. It's because you've been taught and you've had the system introduced, and we're putting this system on trial. Yep, and it doesn't bless anybody, right? You know, you got to figure out what is the intent. All the stuff we've been talking about today, and we don't comprehend intent. Yeah, the mindset of not wanting to unlearn. And it's because it's a threat. If I've watched this, like if I've been taught something, and this is why the system is able to be as predatory as it is over on people. If I have been taught something my whole life, if somebody tells me something different, you got to comprehend like my emotions, my feelings, my mood, my beliefs, and even the culture I've taken on are all being questioned. Right? They're all being questioned. I have to recognize this. People say, "Why won't somebody? My family's not accepting this. My family's not accepting that." You're questioning something. You know, you like some of us have 75-year-old mothers and will come and be like, "My mother's not really accepting this." For 74 years of her life, she's thought one way, and you think because you told her something that year 75, it's just gonna go away. Like she's had her life in this. Look, man, I only did 6 years. I comprehend though somebody who finally starts learning truth about military and stuff and some of the things that they had to do behind the scenes that were not pretty, but they thought, hey, somebody got to do it to keep democracy in order, and then they find out what democracy is. That person goes through a lot. That goes through a lot. Yeah, talking about Christmas. If you want to bring up Christmas, like Christmas is like if you celebrated Christmas your whole life and somebody told you it was about Christ, right? Because they have the word Christ in it or Christ in it, so you think it's about Christos, the anointed one. And then somebody tells you, you know, Saturnalia existed, and somebody says the winter solstice existed, and somebody tells you, you know, Norse theology and Norse religiosity existed, and somebody tells you witches celebrate Christmas and stuff like that, that person gets upset. Exactly. That's what we've been talking about today. It's a spirit attached to that, a pneumatical thought process, havak. It's a spirit. And so, yeah, if somebody thought that Christmas was holy their whole life, and then we start telling you, well, what is that? Where does the tree come from? Have you read Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1-5? Is it possible Christ could have been born then? Have you read Matthew chapter 1? Start there. Luke chapter 1 and start there. You know, you hear about the three wise men, the three magi. There weren't three wise men. There could be up to hundreds of them, and they were not all magicians or wise men per se, or prophets or whatever, but some of them were kings and had high stature in society and were elders in their tribes. The number three doesn't come from the wise men or the magi. The three wise men is connected to three shepherds. You try to put the shepherds and the wise men as one person, but there were three shepherds. The wise men didn't find him until he was 2 years old in Kemet, where he was hiding because he looked like the people. There's a spirit, and somebody hears you say that, they say, oh, you're trying to make it about race. No, I'm trying to give you truth, because I don't believe that just because I'm of a certain race that I automatically can get into heaven. But once again, we have a problem, because we have this thing that goes on where people go, well, if we're talking about this, that it must be that we're saying that people are going to go to heaven. And the reason why, because people are afraid, because the culture that they came from, the kingdoms that they came from, they said that if you were on the bottom end, we get to treat you like garbage. So now somebody says, I want to be a king. And you say, okay, as a king, that means you're going to treat me like garbage, because my kings treated people like garbage. It's not my culture. They say, well, you want to be a king, you want to be a chieftain. Well, what are you going to try and be like Genghis Khan? We actually say Genghis Khan, but that's not his name. Genghis Khan, right? You going to be like him? It's like, no, that's not my culture. I don't believe that I'm supposed to go around and rob people and have all this stuff and defeat people and kill people and do all this stuff or whatever to make sure that I have a kingdom. That's not where I stand. But somebody hears kingdom and they go off of somebody that's not my culture. This is what happened with Yashua. Yashua came down and they said, oh, okay, cool. He's going to get rid of the Romans and do this because, he's just going to fight and make everything bloody, because that's what kings do. However, his kingdom was not of this world, the system. See, what's the intent? They hear you say queen, they hear you say king, and they hear you say queen under the king or king under the king. Because he's the king of kings, he's the king of royalty. And so since you're a daughter of the Most High, you're a son of the Most High, now all of a sudden they hear us talk about who we are. And they say, well, you know what? When we say those words, we mean violence. Because look, we're violent. The kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent are taking it by force. So they must want to take my stuff by force. No, I want my own. And really, it's not even going to be my own. It's going to belong to the Most High. However, I want to be able to have self-accountability with my relationship with the Most High. 2nd Esdras, chapter 13, verses 40 through 45. Read it when you have a chance to. Yashael left the northern tribes. They said, we're going to go ahead and look for a land that's not inhabited by anybody else. The land of Asheroth. That's the same land that Christopher Columbus came looking for to make slaves out of those people. They left to make sure that they could be under the Most High. He left to make slaves of them. Right. And they know destruction is coming. They do know destruction is coming. They make the assumption, though, that we're out here trying to destroy. Vengeance is not mine, saith the Lord. Vengeance is his. Hard for a lot of people to accept. Vengeance ain't got nothing to do with me. Vengeance is not mine. Vengeance is not mine. You're looking at the wrong person. If you're afraid of vengeance, then make sure you get yourself correct. Make sure that you repent. Make sure that you ask for forgiveness if that's what you need to do. I don't even know if that's what you need to do. It's your life. It's your world. You might need to do that. Amen. He tell you, yeah, you might need to do that. If you need to get yourself together, I don't have a heaven or hell to put you in. I didn't design it. I can't put you in it. By the way, the devil didn't design it. He can't put you in it because the devil doesn't have authority in heaven and he doesn't have authority in hell. Matter of fact, he's not in hell. Read your Bible. It'll bless you. Look at our Revelation Revisited series if you want to go to YouTube and look that up. People are fighting because they don't recognize the intent. Once again, stop wrestling with flesh and blood. Look at the intent. Look at the origin. Look at the principality. You're wrestling with the wrong thing. I don't have anything to trap you. Stop being part of the patriarchy, Kofi. Admit that all men are evil and that all of us have something to do with the change and stuff. Okay, I'll admit that all of us can help to change things. However, I'm not going to admit that I'm just as evil as the person that's up top. Well, see, there you go, because you're dismissing the person up top. No, I never said I dismiss them. I said that I don't have anything to do with them. So are you saying that you never learned anything from their wicked oppressive system? Sure. And I've called myself out for it. I call others. And if there's anything that pops up, or when ladies on here, when queens on here, when my queen, when my wife teaches me about something, I listen. Yeah, I do that. I do that with regularity. And I'm not going to put myself in somebody else's position just because you want me to agree that I agree with something that is not even part of my culture. I grew up in a house where you go against your mama, you get punched in the chest. I don't come from a community. It was wild to me to learn that other people got to talk back to their parents and got to talk back to their mothers and disrespect them, and they didn't open doors for them, and they didn't make sure that if they needed to be wheeled or picked up or put on their shoulder, even a possibility because they had a disability or whatever, to get them from point A to point B, to make sure that if you came in somebody's house that you asked immediately, hey, can I keep my shoes on? Is it all right if I do this? Is it all right if I touch this? Is it all right to go up the stairs? Like, I didn't come from that society. I'm not saying I don't comprehend it. I'm not saying I can't empathize with it. I'm saying it's not my culture. You go back to the places that I came up in, the highest ranking officials in all the places are women. Well, what about Pastor so-and-so? Okay, even the pastor, once he come out of church, guess what? In the society, who run the society? In these communities they built up for us, is it Big Mama or is it the pastors? Because I had more relationships with Big Mamas than I did with pastors. I wasn't raised in the church either, but like, women told me what it was. Women were the one that told me if you were supposed to listen to the pastor or not. And I didn't, even as a Jehovah's Witness, it was the women that told that if you saw the women were listening to the elders, then you listen to the elders. That's what informs my community. I don't know what the stuff is that everybody's trying to tell me about, because that's not what I came up in. And when I started learning about it and I started acting foolish in it and stuff, I came to myself real quick, because myself was what I was taught, what I was trained in. And I said, man, I got to get out of this. This is foolishness. This is stupid. I'm gonna lose my marriage if I keep doing this stupid stuff. But they want us to go ahead and bow down to the same thing, because if we're what we say we are, we must think the way that they do. No. What's the intent? You should have to be taught and believing one way for so long. It takes time for people to think differently. Yeah, of course. Baba Kasha. He can help you find your way. Wrestle with wickedness, not with me. Yeah. And it will divide the truth. It will divide you from wickedness. Yahshua's truth, of course. And that's what we're dealing with. Is people don't look for, once again, they're not trying to put the system on trial and see the intent of the system. They're trying to put people on trial without looking at the person, even looking at the person's intent. So, for example, if there's a white person, this happens often in my life because of what I do. If there's a person by the social construct of white that starts telling me that I'm bad or I'm a reverse racist because I dare mention the term black or white, I comprehend they come from a system. It's easy to forgive somebody, right? Or easier, at least. It ain't always easy, but it's definitely easier to forgive somebody if you recognize the system. I forgive the person who doesn't even recognize the system they're in. If there's a dog that's vicious because its owners never fed it, kept it on the chain, and had it to where it doesn't trust humans, I'm not, even if the dog tries to attack me and I have to hopefully not put the dog down, but I got to do something to, hurt the dog to get it to stop, I wouldn't blame the dog for trying to attack me, because it was trained in a system that said that this is the only way to survive. And people don't want to talk about that. There are some of our people that come against us because they were trained that that's the only way to survive. It's a Sambo spirit. It's a Judas Iscariot spirit, if you want to go biblical. Judas walked with Christ. Let's not discredit that part either. Remember that? It's like what we do with Adam. We just like, oh, Adam, he messed up. Blah, blah. Don't forget, Adam walked with the Most High in the cool of the day. Judas walked with Christ. But Judas came from a system to where money was more important than people. Remember, Judas is mentioned more than just once in the Bible, right? Remember that there's a woman that Christ had saved, and she came back to be able to pour the alabaster box on her. She spent a whole bunch of money. And Judas was like, we could use this for the kingdom, because he saw the money is what made the kingdom go. He said, no, she's preparing me for my death. She's doing what's necessary. She's on point. Right? She's on point. She's doing what's necessary. She's doing what's valid. She's doing what's valuable. And Judas couldn't see it. He couldn't see the intent. There's some of our brothers and sisters that are so warped by the system, they can't see the intent. Yeah, somebody goes to Trump, you think that they're a traitor right off the bat. And look, they can be betraying you in a sense, but really a lot of them, they don't know what they're doing. Right? Like, so yeah, Jim Brown, like we lambasted and blasted and made that man look terrible. And I started to do the same thing in the beginning when Jim Brown was with Trump. Went to Trump, but then I had to stop myself real quick because I was like, wait a minute, this is the same Jim Brown that made sure that Bloods and Crips stopped attacking each other. This is the same Jim Brown that started making sure that he put out black film. This is the same Jim Brown that, you know, he has some interesting things in his life or whatever that came up. He ain't perfect, but this same Jim Brown that was doing a whole bunch of stuff for us. He saw Trump. Trump invited. Trump said, I'm going to actually do something for your people. And Jim Brown said, you know what? I'll go ahead and see about him, because his mindset was, hey, he said he'll do something for my people. He might have been older, you know. It's like Toussaint Louverture, right, with Haiti, and he went to France because he was just kind of like a lot of people say he was kind of tired of fighting. People said, don't go, they're gonna kill you, but he went to talk. He didn't, right, and he ended up dying, and it ended up hurting his people in the long run because they didn't have that stronger leadership. Yeah, you said because Judas held the money box for the poor and was a thief. And well, some people say he was a thief, some people don't, right? But he had a thing where he still walked with the Most High. Well, I'm trying to say, and you got to look at his intent. You got to look at the intent of the system he came out of, right? A lot of people come out where money is everything. That's the system they were raised in. Remember we talked about that with addiction. People ain't never experienced money before. They get a little taste of it. Their bills get paid. Next thing, I got to have money. Money's the only way to live. Look at me. Look at these bricks of money. I'm going to throw money on the stripper. I'm going to do this. Everything's about money. I got to go. Like a lot of brothers don't even go to the strip club because they about the behind, the booty and all that stuff. They go into the strip club because it's a place where they can throw the money. There's more excitement about the fact that they can go ahead and have a DJ play their song and have somebody bring out, you know, trays of money, and they just go ahead and throw it out. They get addicted to it real fast because of the intent of the social climate they were in. It helps me comprehend the reprobate doesn't really understand life and death is in the tongue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why, amen. I like this prayer. That's why Joshua said the first word of the 7 last words, Father, forgive them. Why? Why? Father, forgive them. Why? For they know not. They're not intimate with what they are doing. Right? That's what it is. You know, money's not even real. So think about that. You're chasing something that's not even real. There's no gold and silver to back it up. And you're chasing something like somebody brought out today that's mostly made out of cotton. Represents the slave trade still. But when you don't know any better, when the betrayal, when real true betrayal happens, it was somebody knows and they still intend to do you harm. You know, bourgeoisie, stuff like that. That's when the boule, that's when we got a problem. I see you, Don. Right, but that's when they have a problem. That's when we got an issue. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. I have nothing left to add. Thank you so much for being on with us. We appreciate you. Um, we'll be back in front of you tomorrow. We'll try and have, I don't know if it'll be by tomorrow or Sunday, but by Monday, we'll try to have our shirt stuff together. We'll try to have the music stuff together. If you guys want to help as far as fundraising, remember there's always Patreon. Starting next weekend, we're going to try and get at least our weekly meeting going again. Now that we have some things in a better order and better structure, we'll try to make sure that YLP 83 people have their assignments. We're thankful and grateful to everyone for being on with us today. We appreciate the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Please, as always, pray about this message, think about it, study, meditate, so that you can hear it and also apply it as well, be doers as well. We give all praise and honor to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. If you'd like to email her email is Bloom, the letter N, Flourish, and then the number 1, Bloom and Flourish 1 at gmail.com. So thank you all. We appreciate you so very much. We honor you. We respect you so much. We're thankful. Those who are helping out with project management, we appreciate you for helping us to be able to start getting things back on track again with these announcements. Don't forget, October 14th through the 16th, we're still meeting up. Please do not forget those who are in the Central North region. We're going to make sure that we're meeting up in Chicago area. So those who are in Ohio, it's not too far, right? Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, the Dakotas. If you want to make your way from Missouri, etc. I think anywhere else we're kind of getting a little further away, but so if anybody wants to come up there and meet with us, we'll be meeting in the Chi-Town area. I'm gonna try and talk to Minister Tamara a little bit again today. Try and reach out with Big Brother Thomas sometime today as well. Just ask some questions and see what they think as far as distance and things like that. And we look forward. I think it's May 27th, 28th, 29th, whatever the last Friday, Saturday, Sunday is. We'll plan on being there. So thank you all. We appreciate you all again. We look forward to talking to you guys very soon. We will be trying to come to Texas. I got to look at the calendar again. We have it. Texas is going to be later on in the year. But we'll make sure we get that information out when it's time to come. And we'll try to have everybody who contacts people down there do that. We'll be trying to get Miami. We're probably not going to go to Miami. We will be coming to Florida. We do have a couple of people in Miami, actually. Matter of fact, a couple people we haven't talked to a while. We'll be coming back to the DMV. We come to the DMV somewhat often, even though it's only for a few days here or there. But we'll try to come to the DMV very soon. Or I'm not sure what the date is for that. I have to double check. But we'll be looking at trying to get a place for us to be there. But we thank you. We appreciate you. Just keep on tuning in. We'll probably add the stuff to the calendar as well on the website. Also, too, we'll be using our Google Calendar a lot more. So some of these dates that I'm talking about, they'll be popping up in your email eventually, and you'll be getting notices. So as we have, check your emails, and therefore, if we have your email address, when we add on to the description and stuff on there, whatever changes are made, you'll be able to get an email. Oh, wow. Thank you. I haven't seen that one before now. I appreciate it. So thank you. We honor the King, Queen, and each and every one of you. Don't forget, too, June 5th is fast approaching. So if you can take that day off, that's should be treated like Shabbat, should be treated like Sabbath. That's going to be Pentecost. So prayerfully, you guys will be ready for that. I'm going to start trying to incorporate an Omer box pretty soon. And an Omer box, basically, the goal of it is not something that's biblical, but it's something that's kind of like traditional amongst our people, where we kind of put something in it every day, or you can take something out of it every day for your family to see something. So I think where we got it from, they used to take something out every day. They put something in for the children or something like that, and every day the children come and take something out of the Omer box. Omer kind of talking about like production of food and things like that, and valuing things and harvest and having a mindset of tithing and first fruits and those things. But we'll have something like that to where, I don't know if we'll make it prayer one day or this or that, or there's different things people might even want to send or might ask us to buy or do something like that. And we can put, we can just kind of have a box where, it'll be virtually. But if you guys want to kind of have the same thing, you can use a shoe box. You can, I know people use old cigar boxes and redone them or whatever, but basically just kind of something you can put something in that's what we're going to treat it as. I'm not sure exactly what we'll be putting in it, but let's see. What is today? Is it May 5th today? Somebody help me out. I can't without shutting down the stuff. Look at the calendar. Well, I guess I can look at the calendar online real quick. What is today? It's got to be May 5th today, right? Oh, it was May 5th yesterday. Wow. Okay. So I guess what we'll do is tonight I will have two things that we'll be putting in the Omer box. I'm a day behind. Um, and so we'll every day up until the 6th, we'll have something we kind of put in there, whether it's a plant, whether it's a prayer, whatever. So we'll have two things tonight. I'll be back on 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern New York time tonight. We're on every day, 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern New York time. We're going to start next week, at least for a little while, until some things get caught on bare minimum. Then we'll revisit it. We're going to start next week taking Wednesdays off completely. So we already take the Wednesday evenings off. We'll just take Wednesday off completely. So we'll be on every day except for Wednesdays to have a little bit of rest for everybody. We'll still be on Patreon and stuff like that, though. So if you want to, you can always look on Patreon for a video or something to pop up. But as far as YouTube, TikTok, the podcast, Facebook, we'll take a day off on Wednesdays, officially starting next week, and we'll revisit that sometime in the future. So just to put that out there to give you guys an early heads up for that. But today is Friday. We ask everybody to go out if you can be a blessing to somebody. We thank you so much. We appreciate you all. My wife this month is over Shabbat Shalom. So we're thankful and grateful to her for doing that. So she's going to be either speaking or I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do with every Saturday. Our ministerial staff is going to be stepping up and doing things with these Shabbat Shalom podcasts for the next few months. So I'll just be listening unless one of them asks me to come on and speak or something like that. We'll pretty much just be tuning in and listening. So we're thankful and grateful. My wife will be taking over this month, and she said she's going to talk about some things as far as healing. And I know she's going to talk about also some stuff. Well, I won't put words in her mouth. She's told me some things I'm excited about, but I'm going to just follow her lead. So we thank you once again. Check out her products for healing on at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest. And even you can email her bloomandflourish1, the number one added to Bloom and Flourish at gmail.com. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made in you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. No, so not, and by the way, not Shabbat, I'm talking about Shabbat Shalom, the podcast, the service. So on these next Saturdays for the month of May, the next 4 Saturdays, May 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th, she'll be on to talk. If she decides to go live on Bloom and Flourish and stuff like that, we'll let you know. But that's not what we were talking about, right? So, but we thank you. We appreciate you. We honor you. And we will talk to you guys later. Have a great, outstanding, incredible day. And remember, you can handle it, as we talked about last night. And we look forward to talking to you guys later this evening at 8 Eastern. Shalom. Peace.